Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 12th, 2023 East Whiteland Township Board of Supervisors meeting. I'm Chairman Scott Lambert. Please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I'd like to introduce our attendees here at the table. Starting on my far left is Steve Brown, our Township Manager. Immediately to my left is Bernadette Kearney, our Solicitor. On my immediate right is Vice Chairman Rich Orlow and Supervisor Peter Fixler on the outside. Beginning with board briefings, the executive sessions were held today at 5 o'clock on July 12th to discuss legal, personnel, and real estate issues. First item that discuss is on 2B under the Route 30 corridor update. So we have an update on the $23 million federal U.S. Department of Transportation raised grant application for the Route 30 corridor improvement project. DOT awarded $2.2 billion to 162 infrastructure projects across the country. And despite overwhelming support from a who's who of our local, Chester County, federal, and state legislators representing our residents that included Casey, Fetterman, Houlihan, Muth, Howard, Maxwell, Kickline, and Michelle Oskowitz, and receiving $3.5 million of state money and meeting with the Department of Transportation face-to-face in Washington, D.C. We were disappointed in not being selected to receive this important grant in order to help our entire Chester County community, which would have improved traffic safety, connectivity, and would have created 141 direct and 55 indirect jobs. So the bottleneck of Route 30 will remain. I will add that Pennsylvania received, the state in its entirety received 3 grants, one in Lehigh Valley, the city of Philadelphia, and one in Western PA. And also that 70% of the money awarded was for projects in what the federal government defines as areas with persistent poverty or home to historically disadvantaged communities. Our next step is myself and the staff with our consultants will be meeting with Senator Casey's staff for a debrief on the declination and determine our next steps. I would also say that if when you're sitting on Route 30 getting annoyed at the traffic, write an email to your legislators and ask them to support this project going forward. The next update I've got under board briefings is regarding A.J. Walensky and the trash pickup. I think by now everyone is aware of the problems that we had, but the background, the national company bought our regional residential trash hauler who had been providing fine, reliable service to the community. But following the sale, to this national company, service faltered, and the health, safety, and the welfare of our residents became negatively impacted. I will say that it was important that you, the residents, had sent so many emails directed to me, the board, the staff, and social media posts, as it showed the widespread issue and seeing no improvements to service pickups and a lack of communication by the new company. On behalf of the board, I talked with Steve Brown, and we agreed to proceed processing a violation citation underneath our township ordinance. The fines can range from $100 to $1,000 per violation. Also, on June 21st, I had a phone conversation with Mark P., who's the regional vice president of the new company, on behalf of our impacted residents. And I expressed the concerns that you had been communicating, that I was reading, and it was being communicated to our staff. He was taken back when I informed him that we were preparing citations under our ordinance. And I said to him, if our service improved as he described to me it would, we would consider rescinding the fines, subject to the staff and the board agreement. So folks, if you continue to have problems, continue to email us. We are reading those. And more of an update, if John, can you give us any updates from your perspective?
We forwarded the warning notice or violation notice recently. What we would suggest is that anybody has any problems that continue, to give me a email. My email address is available on the website. It's jmatea@eastwhiteland.org, and we'll put that on our list with the violation notice. All the information that they send us would be beneficial if we end up going before the district justice.
Okay. Don, any questions out there? Next, Steve Brown, you've got some personnel actions.
Yeah. I'm requesting a motion from the board to approve the personnel action resolution regarding the demotion of employee number 112. So I simply need the board someone to make that motion, and then I need a vote.
Motion to accept the demotion and change for employee.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And passes.
Aye.
Thank you.
Two things not listed here I want to mention. We want to remind everyone that, and I'm not sure the date, our next concert in the park for Park and Rec is July 19th. Hopefully we end up not having a rain date like we did last time. And Lauren Hart and her band will be singing there. Her dad used to call the Philadelphia Flyers hockey games over the years. Thank you. We've got a national night out scheduled for the August 1st. And it's going to be held at the Grove this year. So there'll be a few more amenities to engage your attention to. I guess we will have police officers, giveaways, fire trucks, EMTs. It was a good turnout last year. It's It's a good time to meet everyone, so hope to see you there.
And Scott, if I could add, importantly, we're having a dunk tank. I'm not quite sure who's going to be in the dunk tank, but I'm sure there'll be some surprises.
So you're saying I'm all wet?
38,000 men who are patriots, professionals.
And I want to just make an announcement for everyone, is that under item number 3, just to let everyone know that the hearing for the Bentley property will be re-advertised. Bentley rezoning property at the Clues and Strawbridge Building will be re-advertised for August 9th, 2023, to ensure that we meet all the procedural compliance within the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code and Second Township Code. That will also include zoning ordinance amendment related to the multifamily Route 30 overlay district, section 200-39.4, as well as the zoning map, which would include tracts of land identified as UPI number 42-4-309, 310, and 310.2 in the multifamily Route 30 overlay district. Exciting stuff. Next, I will turn over control to Bernadette Kearney for the public hearing. I'm sorry, we're moving that further on out. We've got board motions and resolutions coming up. We've moved a few things around here at the last minute, so. Chris, if you'd like to take over this portion.
Yeah, we're going to be swearing in a voluntary fire police officer, Mike Gerardo. So I believe Rich Gerardo is going to come down with the oath and his swearing in.
I state your name.
I, Michael Gerardo,
Do solemnly swear that I will support,
swear that I will support,
obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
and defend the Constitution
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge
and discharge
the duties of my office with fidelity.
the duties of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. This is your badge.
Thank you.
And I'd like to make a couple comments too. Mike came to us from New York City, came to live in our wonderful little township, and he, when I interviewed him, he was telling me how much he loved it here, and he described all the same things. I was raised here too, so he kind of described all the same things that I liked. But so he moved here with his wife and his 2 sons, who are seated there in the audience. And I just want to thank him for taking over this service. We're constantly looking for new fire police volunteers. It's kind of a thankless job because on most scenes, come on over here a little. On most scenes, these are the people who have to stand by and take over for the police officers who are investigating, whether it be a crime, an auto accident, a fire, or anything like that. So they free up the police officers, and they provide a really good service. So we're glad to see him as a volunteer. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rich. Moving on, we want to recognize some East Whiteland Township volunteers, and I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief John DeMarco.
Good evening, everybody. Members of the board, township staff, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming this evening and helping and joining us in celebrating the achievement of two of our members who have completed the Emergency Medical Technician School here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and received their national registry as well. The school itself is about 3 to 4 months long, so for about 3 to 4 months, nights and weekends, they had to leave their families and put some of their responsibilities on the side so that they could successfully complete this class. And we're very proud of the hard work that they've done and their commitment to the community. Also, just as a note, our fire company is celebrating 70 years this year of service to the community. And throughout that time, I know that on behalf of the members of the fire company, we appreciate your continued support of our organization and allowing us also to come here tonight on such a busy agenda. So with that, I would like to ask Rajiv Anand and Hertha Rajiv to please come up. And our president of the fire company, Gary McCusker, he's hiding in the back, so I'm going to have him come up. He didn't think he was going to. Oh, there he is. Okay. So on behalf of the members of the fire company, we would like to take this opportunity to celebrate with you this achievement. This is really a lot of hard work. We're very proud of what you've done and being part of our organization, contributing to the strong quality of life of East Whiteland. Thank you. Could we get a picture with
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Greg, you up for promotions?
Good evening, everybody. Real brief, we had a vacancy in the Department of Fire and Emergency Services for a fire captain's position. So through testing and assessment center, I'm proud to recommend Terry Bechtel to fill that position. And we also would like to promote a part-time firefighter EMT to full-time EMT, and that is Paul Brown.
Tremendous resumes. Thanks for all your work you guys do. Would you like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to promote Terry Bechtel to captain, and Paul Brown from a part-time to a full-time firefighter / EMT.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And passes. Again, congratulations. Moving on to 5D and E, I will hand over to Assistant Manager Kathleen.
The first item here is in March of 2020, the Board of Supervisors adopted a declaration of disaster emergency associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. And in May of 2023, FEMA officially ended the COVID-19 National Emergency Declaration. So at this time, this resolution is in consideration of terminating the COVID-19 disaster of emergency declaration for East Whiteland Township. Don't see any issues with that at this point in time.
Rich, would you like to make a motion?
Sure, make a motion to approve the termination of the COVID-19 disaster of emergency declaration for East Whiteland.
And a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And passes.
All right, next on the agenda is the America 250 PA resolution. This is an effort that was started under the former Governor Wolf and has now been picked up by our current governor, creating a Pennsylvania Commission for the United States Semi-Quintennial. It started in 2018. This is to encourage, develop, and coordinate the commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the United States, which is going to take place in 2026. The county, just as an aside, the county also has a separate initiative, so I would fully expect that, especially as efforts ramp up over the next 3 years, they'll be looking for the township's involvement in planning lots of county-wide events. And so this is a resolution in support of these efforts and indicates the township's participation in planning the 250th anniversary.
So who's going to be in charge at this end?
There'll probably have to be a committee that's formed.
Okay. Good answer. Peter, would you like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the America 250 PA resolution.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And passes.
Okay, ready to
You're
move?
still
okay.
up?
All right, last one. So you'll recall at a recent meeting of the board, there was consideration for a proposal related to the township's MS4 program and meeting our pollutant reduction plan responsibilities under that. And at the time, the township, the Board of Supervisors had indicated their willingness to go along with a plan that was being pushed forward through the state through working lands. Unfortunately, we've been advised that that plan as it was written is no longer going forward. They're going to go back to the drawing board and rework their plan to include some additional projects, which means that the township can no longer be a partner in that effort. So we have to move forward with our own MS4 priorities at this time. The good news is that they did do a lot of legwork for us that we're able to benefit from and utilize the services of the township engineer. And so that's the proposal that you see before you this evening. It's essentially for work that you've already authorized. It will just be a different entity, which will be the township engineer through Arrow, who will be doing that design work. And I'll just briefly outline to you what's included in the proposal. It's for survey design and bidding for the 3 stream restoration projects that were previously discussed and presented to the board.
Are we still participating with the PennDOT credits?
No.
though? And that's all gone.
Yes.
So the entire obligation is now on us.
So the entire obligation was always on the township. We were just able to sort of piggyback on that contract that they already had out there that now they're going to revisit.
And that would have saved $1 million, I believe?
We actually have had conversations with the engineer, and we think we're going to be able to be pretty close to in line with the cost estimates that we were considering before, because we're able to net out some PennDOT specific work that we're no longer obligated to do.
And that will cover this first 5-year period.
That's correct.
And this 5-year period expires?
Next year, at the end of next year.
By the end of 2024.
End of 2024.
So this will have to be completed or well underway by the end of next year.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. Make sure it's in our budget.
Did anyone else bid on it other than Arrow?
No, it wasn't provided out to any other professionals to provide a proposal.
With the dollar amount, were we required to bid it out?
Professional services are not required to be bid.
That's what this is all falling under?
Yes.
Okay.
I would think that the already familiarity of Arrow with the township certainly inures to our benefit in the cost, right?
Okay, well, we don't have much of a choice on this one, I don't think, so. Any questions from the audience? Zoom? Peter, would you like to make another motion for 6A? Or, I'm sorry. 5F.
So I'd like to make a motion to accept the quote from Arrow for the MS4 PRP, planning to not exceed $205,000.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and passes. Next, we will move into planning and development. And Brittany, we will lead off with you if you can.
Was that on purpose that you skipped that?
Did I skip that on purpose? What do you think? All right, Chris.
So I'm looking to approve the to advertise for the sale of the 2018 Ford Explorer on municipal bid. It was a marked police car, and it's already been replaced by one of the Dodge Durango, the last Dodge Durango that we purchased.
Wait a minute, you're trying to sell something, not buy?
Yeah, that's the way it works. We buy, strip out the
Yeah,
car
well.
before, and then, so
Okay.
try to go in and out.
Peter?
I don't mean to pry too deep, Chief, but it's only a 5-year-old vehicle.
It has about 88,000 miles on it. So
It seems so young.
we do try to get rid of vehicles based on
Mileage, not
what
years.
we expect and what, where they're headed. So if we can get rid of something while it's still good, then it's worth it.
You can bid on it.
You
I
can
have
bid
no
on it.
intention of bidding on it. I just, typically they seem a little older when we're selling them. That's my only inquiry.
Well, I
I'm
missed
not,
the
I'm
beginning
not
of that.
questioning your, completely questioning. I'm just wondering why so young.
Yeah, I think if you remember at the time we bought the Durangos, we were getting a good deal at the time we ordered them, and cars were a little hard to get. So when we get them, we have to get rid of one once we get that one in and up and running.
Sounds good. I could make a motion if Scott so desires. I'd like to make a motion to approve the advertising of the sale of a 2018 Ford Explorer.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, car salesman Yeager. Brittany, we're back to you. Talking about planning and development.
So the first item we have on the planning and development, we have a request for a waiver of our land development process. The applicant was or is Covenant United Presbyterian Church, specifically People's Pantry. They are constructing just over 800 square feet of an addition. One portion, which is about 200 square feet, is a front vestibule area, and then a smaller or a larger storage area in the back of the building, which will be 660 square feet. I do have the plans if you'd like me to bring them up. Because it's such a minor disturbance, it's less than 1,000 square feet, staff has recommended a waiver of the land development process The applicant has already submitted an ENS application for grading to our township engineer, which will be reviewed and ultimately, I assume, approved by our engineer.
I think we kind of went through this last meeting. Any additional questions, guys?
No, no.
Anyone from the public? And once again, folks, thank you for everything you're doing for the community and those in need, and keep it up. Would you like to make a motion?
I would love to make a motion to approving a waiver of land development for Covenant United Presbyterian Church located at 384 Lancaster Avenue. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and passes. Now, if we can move on to our 5.5 to 6 year project for the Sidley Trail connection. It's such an easy project. I don't know why it took this long.
So we're just bringing up a rendering right now, and just bear with us for 1 second. Okay. So you can see we're still pretty preliminary, but for the purposes of just explaining where this project's been since the board last authorized the design work to be done, at the far right side of your screen where you see that hook, that would be where Ashlawn Road is, where it meets Moores. So we pick up the trail there, and it comes across, that would be the St. Gobain property there, coming all the way down to the corner of Sidley, and then it jaunts down Sidley again, fronting on the St. Gobain property, and then eventually crossing over 202, not under, so it's an over. And then the topic of discussion for tonight is where it meets down here at Conestoga Road. And there are two alternatives on the table, and we'll try to bring those up too on the screen so you can see those. And as we're doing that, I'll walk through what those alternatives are. There were originally 3. If you see that green line at the top of the screen, that's not considered a viable option anymore. It was to cross very close to where we're sitting right here, but was taken off the table because of some issues with wetlands and steep slope areas. So there are just 2 alternatives that are under consideration. Those are the ones you see on the screen now. So alternative 2 is the one that we call the Township Complex Driveway Ecology Park connection. This one would traverse behind the wastewater treatment area, connecting through Ecology Park, and then ultimately crossing at the signalized intersection at 401, and then coming up in it on its own dedicated pedestrian and bike lane up, paralleling the township driveway to connect into the Chester Valley Trail. That is alternative 2 in a nutshell. Alternative 3 comes right across 401, comes up Mill Lane, and ultimately is just a very straight shot into the Chester Valley Trail. It's where a lot of the traffic goes currently. So our design engineer for this project did analyze both of these alternatives and did make a recommendation, which was presented to the Park and Rec Board, who also made a recommendation. So I'll walk you through those things. So alternative 2, some of the pros were that it didn't, there were no conflicts with complex building or parking areas. It could have provided a trail connection to Ecology Park. Unfortunately, the grade is very steep in that area for about 500 feet. There were some modifications that were going to be needed for drainage pipes and swales, and as you can see very plainly from these plans, it had a lot more linear feet of pavement associated with it also. The Mill Lane alternative, it's the shortest and most direct route to the Chester Valley Trail, and it is the route that trail users are currently using to access the trail. And some of the things that need to be looked at, though, with this one is that you can see it is on the fire company property, And there are some conflicts in that area with some existing landscaping. There's a fence or two located in there, and there's a steep area that needs to be traversed. So ultimately, the design professional did recommend alternative 3 as the shortest and most cost-effective route. It is also slightly less steep than alternative 2 and has 3 less driveway crossings, which will enhance safety for users. The Park and Rec Board made a recommendation for alternative 3 as well, and indicated that they also agree it's the most direct and cost-effective route. They do not want pedestrian traffic near that township driveway access, they thought, from a safety standpoint. And they also wanted to keep Ecology Park as it is, with not introducing bicyclists to the area. And I will just say, before turning it back over to the board, that the reason why this is before you tonight is mostly because the township's pursuing grant funding. And part of that grant funding is for additional design work and construction monies. And so it is possible that both of these alternatives could continue to be on the table as we go through that design work. As you can see, we're still fairly high level at this point, so there may be some issues that will come up during that time that will have to be evaluated.
Hey, Catherine?
Yes.
There, as I understand it, and I think this is important for the board and interested parties to understand, which is there is a pre-application meeting next week, the 19th, for the grant application. It's called TASA. I forget what TASA stands for. It's another acronym. And at that meeting, we are required to present at least our initial thoughts regarding the alternative, trail route. And that's why this subject is on the board agenda for this evening. But the application is not due until September. So we can change our mind between now and September. So no matter what we present next week, is it PennDOT that the grant's going to?
Yes. Yep.
No matter what we present to PennDOT, when we make the application, we can provide a different alternative. But I think it's important for you and everyone else to understand that.
Is the amount of the grant we're going for connected to or tied to or close to the cost estimate of the different alternatives? Yeah, alternative 2 will be more money if we go with alternative 2 now, and then if we switch to alternative 3, will that help us more with getting a higher grant?
So the township already has one grant to aid in the design for this project, as you're aware. And so this is additional matching funds for that. However, the first grant that we have is just for design work. So the TASA grant is for design and construction. So to answer your question, if the township were to select one of these alternatives, you are locked in to, if we're successful in receiving the grant, they won't give us additional funds if we choose an alternative that becomes more expensive. They may give you flexibility to adjust your design, but you're never going to get more money.
What's the cost differential between the two options?
Hang on one second.
That's not in the packet, the cost was. I don't think.
And we're just dealing with round numbers here because we'll really
Right.
dig into the cost estimates during the design work. So the alternative 3 is a little over $1 million.
To go that short distance.
Well, that's for
$1
the
million.
entirety of the trail connection that we talked about, going all the way back to Ashland.
Oh, okay. All right. Are there sketches, cross-sections yet even of the Mill Lane one? Or it's, right now, it's a cartoon, it's pure crayons?
Yeah, because the grants are to design it, it's still fairly high level at this point.
Right.
And the tacit grant request is for how much again?
I don't have that information right now, but I can get back to you on it.
I mean, one factor for the board is I attended it as treasurer of the fire company. We had a board meeting on Monday, and this was presented. And the fire board was concerned about the effect of running the route up Mill Lane on the fire company property, even though it's really our property, but we lease it to the fire company, but that's just besides the point. Just so you know, that is out there. I mean, Gary is here if you want to just confirm that.
So hi, I'm Gary McCusker. I'm president of the East Whiteland Fire Company. The first we heard of this proposal was on social media a few days ago. So when that came up, we did reach out to, we made an agenda item on our board meeting, which we have members from the supervisors here are. We're interested to learn more about this. We want to be good neighbors and help out if we can. That does run very close to our activities there. There's a traffic signal base at the corner. There's a Pico power line along that route. There's 19 trees and shrubs that are pretty mature. There's different grading that the water off the property, and in some cases routes it to a storm basin, so there's a storm basin that'll be impacted. And that comes within 12 feet, or within 12 feet of the road is our retaining wall. So depending on the width of the trail, I don't know how that would impact that retaining wall. So we have been invited to a meeting next week to discuss in detail, so we'll attend that, gather more information, and share our support or recommendation.
Did you say that the alternative 2 coming up the drive or next to the drive is actually steeper than the mill?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, with all the factors, I have to believe there's some way to reach a compromise in order to protect the fire company property, whatever the cost would be to put more plantings. Obviously, that if this goes forward, that would be on the township 100%. It does seem that shorter might be better. I mean, when I lived over on Ashland, this is exactly how I went up there. And it's really not that long of an uphill bike ride. Like anything that we are faced with, virtually every decision, there's pluses and minuses and pros and cons, and it's impossible to please everybody these days. Although we try, I would lean toward Mill Lane. I don't know what you guys think.
I would have to concur with Rich and believe in my heart of hearts that even if the alternate 2 trail were to be built, I still believe that, as Rich stated when he lived in the neighborhood that would be connected to the trail, old habits would die hard for anybody in those neighborhoods, and they would still proceed down Mill Lane regardless of a alternate 2 trail being there, because again, old habits die hard, and the path of least resistance usually is the shortest line, and that's just human nature to want to go the shorter route.
It looks like the township legal right-of-way line extends onto the property across Mill Lane, so there could be an opportunity to widen Mill Lane there, which would be our cost to further protect the fire company property.
Donna, do we have any comments on Zoom? We do not. Any comments from the public? If you can give your name and address.
I'm David Six. I live at 3 Devonshire Lane, basically at the end of Mill Lane. If you tee, that's where my house is, next to Katie Markley. That's also the way I drive to work, on Mill Lane, so I would love to be able to bike to work and stay on Mill Lane all the way. onto Sidley and Lee. And one thing I've noticed is where that purple turns into the dotted line on alternate 2, that's a sharp turn and it's a little steep there. And I think that would be a problem for people coming down and turning or coming up and turning the other way. I just wanted to make that point.
Evening. Yes, I have a question in regard to alternative 2. The gentleman just mentioned as you go south on Mill Lane, purple line, or in there's a spur or offshoot that goes into the ecology park. Right now, there's no direct, anybody coming on Mill Lane down, there's no direct way to get into the ecology park. You have to go out to 401 and it's dangerous and walk around the wastewater treatment plants. So I think it's great that spur's there, but my question is, if we proceed and select alternative 3, will that spur remain? Will there still be a way to get into the ecology park?
We can look into that.
I think we could ask for maybe a cost or design to look at that.
Okay.
Because I see your point in terms of trying to get into Ecology Park.
Right.
Especially if you've got a number of people that are walking from Springville Farms and
Right,
trying to get to
exactly.
the trail. This offers another alternative walk besides going right up.
Exactly. My observation is most people coming down south of Mill Lane, they go directly straight on Mill Lane to the Petra Valley Trail.
Right.
But it would be nice, as I say, for that option to get to the.
I think it's worth pursuing.
The other question I have is, it's not shown on this, but a little further north on Mill Lane, as we all know, Township just approved the Knickerbocker development, and there's a major multi-use trail coming off that, which hits Mill Lane. So the question becomes, we had these two things going on in parallel, the trail connection and the Knickerbocker trails. They hit Mill Lane in a section where speeding is a problem, quite honestly. I believe most of that's being created now because of the gas exchange, but be that as it may. Is this project, or will there be a project addressing a safe crossover? Because, people using the Knickerbocker Trail or this Chester Valley connection, they're going to want to use the alternate trails as well. Also, with the Knickerbocker Trail, it seems that last Planning Commission meeting now, we have the option of almost having a multi-use trail going all the way from the Township building into Park on 29, given the developments that are underway right now. That's all may come to fruition. So again, my question is what's going to provide that safe connection between the two trail systems on Mill Lane? How are we going to address that?
I think they were looking at a crosswalk,
Yes.
a safe crosswalk,
Yep.
I believe.
Yeah,
I'm not
that-
sure exactly where they ended up choosing.
You can actually, it's very close to where that spur is. I think that's the emergency access right there. And it's very close to that area. And it's certainly something we can share with you in more detail if it's something you're interested in when we get a little further into the design, because it has been brought to the attention of our design professional as something that's being
We
incorporated.
may be talking about two different things. You're saying it's on this?
It's further, it's not on this.
Okay, no, then it must be further up where
Yeah,
the
it's-
emergency access road is. Is that what you're
Right,
talking
exactly.
about?
Yeah, it's
Yep.
further north. It's not shown on this graphic.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I suspect that's going to be more expensive, but again, or somewhere in the planning to address that, because I think it's going to be critical. Because the Knickerbocker, they're starting their development this month, I believe.
It is part of the design
Okay, this
to have
particular.
a crosswalk
Okay,
there.
great.
Yes, it is.
Great.
The other point I'd like to make is that whatever we decide on tonight, there is sort of a back end, Catherine, right, in terms of time frame. If suddenly something changed, we could change our mind by September or something.
Yeah, so we're not asking tonight for a resolution to apply yet. That'll come probably at next month's meeting, and that's when we'll be able to answer your question about what the amount will be at that time. But there is some flexibility between now and September to adjust should we want to make any changes to the design.
Okay. So what would be helpful too is the fact, if there's any residents that are out there that would like to drop us a note with any thoughts. And got another
observation.
Yep.
With respect to Mill Lane, like, would there be any concern, like I heard the gentleman behind me just mentioned with respect to speeding, that's the only thing that came up in mind with respect to alternative 3. Folks that are going along the trail, if there's anything concerning with speeding on the cars. I feel like folks to go a little faster versus, you know, an alternative 2. That's the only thing that came from my perspective.
I have to believe that if alternative 3 materializes, there'll be a barrier in between the trail and the road. There'll have to be. There'll have to be.
So, I guess at this point in time, I'm also in agreement to option 3, so I think we've got a consensus here. So I guess we need to make a motion to approve. Sure, so if we can make a motion to direct Catherine to follow alternative 3.
Yeah, make a motion to direct the staff to indicate our intent to move forward with alternative 3 at this time.
Do you have a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. And passes.
Thank you.
Moving on to the main event tonight would be our movement of our conditional use hearing. Have we got
We're
comment?
actually on 8. We said we were going to do the hearing after 8. So John Taya is up.
Okay, Radar. No, I thought I thought 7A was 7AA. But that's okay. John, why don't you?
For the month of July, there will be no zoning hearing board meeting. Those meetings have been continued until the August meeting. Under the enforcement updates, just for the public's knowledge, there's been an increase on inquiries and complaints concerning the keeping of vehicles on residential properties. Residents are reminded that vehicles must be in repair, be operable by being currently registered, inspected, and insured. And any questions that arise about that or the condition of any vehicles can be directed to my office.
Have we taken care of our rooster complaints?
That rooster was taken care of.
Fried or broiled?
Don't need to know the details.
Thanks, John. Moving on to the main event, again, we'll turn this over to Bernadette regarding the conditional hearing. And so everyone understands this. At this point in time, we're turning it over to Bernadette to run. The 3 board members are nothing but judges at this point in time. We're here to make a rendering on the discussion that occurs. So we're not in our regular roles as supervisors, just to give you an idea. So if we act a little odd, that's the reason why.
And
And Scott, Donna may point this out, we do have the ordinance on first. If you wanted to do the ordinance, that will be pretty quick. We do have that on first. The except for buses ordinance. Are you okay if we proceed with that first?
Yeah, let's do the buses.
Yeah. This is going to open up a public hearing for the East Whiteland Township Amendment to Section 189-8B to allow the placement of accept school buses signs at specific intersections where do not enter signs currently exist. Going to mark a series of exhibits. B1 is the June 28th, 2023 email/letter to the Daily Local with the legal notice and proposed ordinance. B2 is the June 28th, 2023 email and letter to the Law Library with a copy of the attested proposed ordinance. B3 is the proof of publication, and B4 is the ordinance. As indicated in the ordinance and as in the title, there are a series of intersections I'm going to run through quickly. Buck Run Lane and Route 401. Buck Run Lane at Sweetsford Road. Deer Run Lane at Route 401. Doe Lane at Route 401. Mill Lane and Sidley Road with Lap Road. Moorhall Road, also Route 29, and Flat Road. Old Moorhall Road and Lap Road, and Sidley Road and Flat Road, where we're going to add, there are existing do not enter signs, and except for school bus is going to be added in. It's brought to the attention of the board by some people in the communities where their children, the school buses wouldn't come through the community. And we've reviewed these. We've asked PennDOT to comment. It's taken a while. We don't have yet a comment from PennDOT on them, but we made them aware that we were doing this. So I don't know if anybody in the audience had any questions or anyone online.
Yeah, this is something we've talked about for the last couple months, and Zach has worked,
and the
chief has worked on it, worked with the school district.
Can I ask one question? The Old Moorhall Road and Lap Road, are we changing that? Because that's a one-way all the time.
To add the...
Yeah, I don't think we were planning on adding except for buses on that road, if that's what you were including, the way you read it.
Even in the morning? Isn't it, if it was to be an exception, it would be in the morning hours. Isn't there a time limit on that sign anyway?
I should apologize. If you read this, the Old Moorhall Road and Lap Road is a do not enter device shall be erected to face traffic intending to proceed northbound on Old Moorhall Road. No left turn signs shall be placed at the same intersection facing traffic eastbound on Lap. That one did not have except for school buses on it. That was, I think that one was one we wanted to add into while we were correcting all these.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I know we've talked it through a number of times. You okay with it, Chief?
Yes.
Okay. Want to make a motion?
Sure. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance amendment related to traffic control signals and devices to exempt buses from travel restriction under section 189-8.b.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And passes.
Thank you. And then if the board is ready, we could read the legal notice for the conditional use hearing. We're going to open the public hearing for the conditional use. I'm going to read the legal notice. Notice is hereby given that on July 12th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. at the East Whiteland Township Municipal Building, the Board of Supervisors shall hold a public hearing on and may take action to vote upon the conditional use application of Chester County School Authority for portions of properties located at 40 Moores Road, identified as tax parcel numbers 42-4-2.3B and 42-4-2.3. The applicant is requesting a conditional use pursuant to section 200-38.A, 200 attachment 6, table of permitted uses for mixed-use districts, to permit a proposed educational use along with playground areas and associated improvements intended for a maximum capacity of 170 students, ranging from ages 4 to 21, and conditional uses pursuant to Sections 200-57E4 and F1 to permit sewer lines in areas of steep slopes and very steep slopes. I'm going to mark a series of exhibits. These are the board exhibits. B1 is the letter and conditional use. I should say T. T1 is the letter and conditional use application. T2 is the plan application submission. T3 is the tree plan. T4 is the Child Development Center flyer. T5 is the speech/language program flyer. T6 is the traffic generation assessment dated June 23rd, 2023. T7 is the Arrow review letter dated June 21st, 2023. T8 is the McMahon review dated June 23rd, 2023. T9 is the letter to the Daily News with legal notice. T10 is the Planning Commission recommendation. T11 is the letter and affidavit of notice to neighbors. T12 is the affidavit of posting of the property. And T13 is the proof of publication. The applicant is represented by Mr. Riper, who's in the audience. I will explain party status, because there are some people in the audience and maybe online. Party status is normally if you disagree with the decision made by the Board of Supervisors, you have the right to appeal it to the next level, which is the Chester County Court of Common Pleas. Normally, if you receive notice, you're within a certain distance of the property, and the Board of Supervisors would normally grant you grant you party status to this conditional use application. Mr. Riper does have the right to cross-examine you. They take more into consideration whether you should have party status if you're beyond a certain distance and hadn't received notice. The Board of Supervisors will allow you to ask questions or make a comment for or against the application at the conclusion of the hearing. You do not need to have party status for that. They will allow you to, since you have come out and shown your interest, they will allow you to ask questions of the witnesses and also make your comments for or against the application after Mr. Riper has presented his witnesses. At this time, I will ask, is there anyone who requires party status? Anyone online, Donna?
No one online.
Okay. So then at this, I'm sorry. Oh, Mr. Lutz, you can come up.
Martin Lutz. My property address is 4 Lap Road. I own property that's adjacent to and directly east of the site in question. I doubt that I will need party of interest status because I support the conditional use. However, procedurally, I'd like to adopt those status.
And Mr. Lutz, for the record, did you receive notice?
Yes, I did.
Yes. And Mr. Riper, do you have any objection? No objection. Okay. I assume the board would allow Mr. Lutz to have party status?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else, Donna? Okay. Oh, sorry, sir. If you, I'm sorry. Yeah, and I apologize. There is a court reporter because it is an official hearing, so she will need your name.
Kent Kingan, 4 Ashlawn Road, Malvern. So I received a notice. Do I need to say claim party status or anything like that? Or
The way party status works is if you want to have the ability to appeal the decision to the next level, which is the Chester County Court of Common Pleas, you need to ask for party status. If you just want to ask questions or make comments, you don't have to have party status. You could certainly do that.
Can't hurt to have party status. I don't think I'm going to use it, but.
Okay, so I'm sorry, you did receive notice?
Did, yes.
And I'm sorry, what was your address again? 4?
Sure, 4 Ashlawn Road.
Ashlawn Road, okay.
Around the corner.
And Mr. Riper, do you have any objection? Okay. And I assume the board would be amenable to Mr.
No objection.
Okay.
No objection.
All right, so I have, anyone else?
I think you have one more.
Similar situation, Les Craig at 17 Moores Road.
17?
17 Moores Road.
Moores Road. And I'm sorry, your last name again?
Craig, C-R-A-I-G.
Got it. And you received notice in the mail?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Riper, any objection? No. Board is amenable to Mr. Craig having party status?
No objection. No objection.
Okay.
No objection.
One more?
Mike Bernard, 15 Moores Road. Received a notice.
Received the notice. Mr. Riper, any objection? Board amenable to Mr. Bernard having a party status?
Yeah, no objection.
No objection.
And that may be all. And then, Mr. Riper, I'll turn it over to you.
As Ms. Kearney indicated, my name's Joe Riper. I represent the Chester County School Authority, which is the applicant in this case. I'm not sure if this clarification is necessary, but you often hear references to CCIU or the Chester County Intermediate Unit. And just on the off chance that someone may not understand the relationship, the authority is an entity that is formed to own the property. The Chester County Intermediate Unit, CCIU, is the operating entity. It's part of the, it's a function of the, or an instrumentality of the Department of Education. So that we use them kind of interchangeably, and I just thought if that comes up, I didn't want you guys to be confused at all. As this particular conditional use application relates to 2 units within the Moores Road office condominium, Unit 1B and Unit 3. The total land area that's involved is approximately 22 acres. The current owner of those units is Mountain Laurel Funding Company, LLC, and the Chester County School Authority executed an agreement of sale dated May 19th with the Mountain Laurel Funding Company, and that agreement is still in effect. The property is located in your professional office PO zoning district, and that district permits the proposed use, which is an educational use, by conditional use. In addition, as the notice indicated, the proposed construction involves a sewer line that runs to the eastern part of the property and goes through steep slopes and very steep slopes, and your ordinance also requires that that be permitted by conditional use. Tonight I have 3 witnesses. Obviously there's some interested people here. We have 3 witnesses. I have Joseph Labisky, who is the Director of Facilities for the Chester County Intermediate Unit, Barry Stingle, who is our land planner, and Brian Kevaney, who is our traffic expert. There's going to be some redundancy here, but I do want to identify our exhibits for the record. Find that if I do it in the same fashion that Ms. Kearney did, it saves a lot of time as we go through the process. And there are 1 or 2 points that I want to clarify in terms of which exhibit I think probably should take precedence. But our exhibit A1 is the conditional use application. A2 is the affidavit of notice to neighboring landowners. A3 is a copy of the first and last page of the agreement of sale. I didn't include the entire agreement. There's no reason that we didn't, other than I didn't know that it would be of any interest to the board. A4 is an architectural perspective of the building. A5 is the CV for our land planner, Barry Stengel. A6 is a conditional use plan dated May 26, 2023. A7 is a comparison of the proposed project to what was previously approved for the property for these 2 units. A8 is the existing tree exhibit dated July 6, 2023. A9 is the CV of Brian Kevaney, our traffic witness. A10 is a trip generation assessment dated July 7, 2023. I do want to point out, Ms. Kearney, that there was a supplement to that, to the original document that you marked, and I would think that we would probably want to use this exhibit, Exhibit A10, in lieu of the one that was previously submitted. Exhibit A11 is the Township Engineer Review Letter dated June 21. A12 is the Township Traffic Review Letter dated June 23, 2023. And finally, A13 is the Township Staff Review Letter dated June 27, 2023. And with that, I understand we have to share the microphone, so this will be a little bit cumbersome, but I would ask Joe Levitsky to come up and we'll put his testimony on the record. Would you state and spell your name?
Joseph Lubitsky, L-U-B.
Sorry.
Oh. Yes, I do. It's Joseph Lubitsky, Lubitsky.
And your occupation?
I'm the Director of Administrative Services, Chester County Intermediate Unit.
In that position?
Been with the Intermediate Unit since 2001.
You oversee projects?
Yeah, my responsibilities are the overall business operations, facilities, construction, transportation, those type of support service for the.
And could you estimate for the board how many different projects?
I've been in Chester County for over 30 years, and during that time, I probably have handled about 36 different school and office projects for the intermediate unit, probably total projects of about $450 million.
Can you explain?
Chester County Intermediate Unit is a regional service agency. Do a broad scope of services for school districts, municipalities, and others. Many are familiar with us because we run the 3 vocational education campuses in the county. We help coordinate tax collection throughout the county, and procurement, those type of things. But really, our core area of services is providing services to children and young folk, students with special needs.
What type of facility?
We are proposing a facility to service students with some of the most severe, significant cognitive, physical, multiple disabilities type situations. Programs with some of the significant resources in terms of people, equipment, staff. We project probably open the building with, if about 130 to 135 students, eventually growing to about 175, 180 students. Initially, 85 to 90 staff members, I think probably topping out at 10 staff members occupied. Yes, yes. The students need various degrees of help with mobility, feeding, their lessons, physical activities. Very high ratio of adults to children. Uh, 5 years old through age. Yeah, children with who've been diagnosed with any spectrum, children that are wheelchair bound, children, life skill supports. Again, residents generally of Chester County, school districts, and the school districts send them to the Chester County so that we can provide the services. That's correct. As I said, the districts are required to provide education to all students. Since the 1960s, we've been operating out of a campus in Township. It has been at capacity at about 360 students for several years now. It's a much larger campus. It's about 185,000 square feet. As we all know, the districts and the county have grown, the residential population. Over the last year, we've been unable to serve over 125 students who've requested services. So our board has authorized us to take a multi-pronged approach. The first is we acquired a vacant school in West Grove, and we're converting that into a campus. And that'll give access to the students and school districts in the southern create some of the same programs we have in Cowan. But on Moores Road, that's really our biggest emphasis. We realized that this area is the fastest growing area of Chester County, where we're getting a tremendous number of requests from Great Valley, Easttown, Westchester, Phoenixville, and some of the collar school districts in Delaware County. We're looking to create a brand new campus to create access to the opportunity. That's if there's spaces available. If we don't have the spaces available, they seek alternative placements, which could be long distance outside of the county, private school placements, county or outside.
One of the from the Planning Commission.
Most of the schools, the calls we have to our current campus, the Child and Career Development Center campus in town, are medically related, I'll say, ambulances also accommodate. There's also, we're part of a mandatory reporting process. If we know of use, neglect, situations at home or in the community, we have to report it. That will trigger an investigation from the police and a visit to the school. Similar type of investigations through the Department of Welfare, Department of Children and Services. Again, it's more related to the nature of the students' disability, and just kind of the welfare, the well-being of the students.
Would you?
Very, very minimal. Yes, we looked at our logs from last year at police departments. We worked with the police department, tracking all those calls. We had 73 calls during the past school year with 360 plus students at that campus. Correlation, I would anticipate maybe about half of that number services. There can be some redundancy based on it.
Okay, so
Yes, we have two campuses on the Cowan Township property, Child and Career Development Center, programs I've just described. We also have the Chester County IU Learning Center, and that's a building that's dedicated more for high school kids that have gotten in trouble. They've gotten suspended from school. We work for them to get them back on track and to get them back.
the board may have.
That's correct.
One of the things
We operate over 1 million square feet of 20 different locations. School safety has been paramount for our staff and for our students, parents that are visiting. And we have taken a lot of measures to address school safety, camera systems, to complex access locking systems. Visitors that come have their licenses scanned so we can run a background check on them. Our staff go through many different types of drills for safety, shooters, intruders, those type of things. Deployed different software so that we communicate quickly. We have developed teams within the building with the organization to respond. And again, continue to just look at threat assessments throughout all of our buildings and facilities, and we would do the same here and try to incorporate some of those best practices in the facility. Yes, it is.
Can you describe rendering?
This is a very early rendering. Develop it first to try to kind of mirror some of the positive design aspects of the St. Gobain property, kind of show how it fits into the overall campus. The building itself, initially we're looking at a two-story classroom wing to the west, central type of entrance area, as well as that 4 facilities, cafeterias, specialty therapy, side. The building would try to study the access and egress for vehicles, driveways and parking lots, obviously within the constraints of the site itself. We've just really gotten into the actual program of the inside of the floor plan inside of the building yet. That's correct. There were no student drivers. Pretty much all of our students receive some sort of personalized transportation, door to door from their homes to the school, and then full-size bus. There may be full kids that generally they're coming on smaller buses or specially equipped vans, that wheelchairs and type of handicap access stuff from their homes are brought to our facilities. There is a handful of parents that drop off also. No student.
In terms of the school, you basically had enough. Yeah, is that a fair
statement? Very rare. I know we do Special Olympics in the spring, might be holidays, but there's no sports, night activity at this particular facility.
I got a litany of questions if you want. Thank you for that information. I'd like to lead in with some thoughts, back and forth conversation. I know one of your mission statements is one of your goals to work collectively with your partners, and I think we would be considered one of your partners. So if we can have a little banter back and forth, that might be helpful on some of these. The one question I have that jumps out at me is, there's a vacant building across the street, and there's a tremendous amount of vacant buildings in the Corporate Valley Center. And is there any reason why you wouldn't go ahead and gut those buildings and create the type of building that you're looking for here, rather than building from ground up?
We did look at that building. Start getting to 3 stories high. Even though we're looking at a 2-story classroom wing, they'll be interconnected with ramps. To get kids in and out of our type of facilities for these programs, we need a lot of ground floor doorways, we need ramps inside. Empty office building, although many of them are very attractive, just didn't seem the correct option given what's available here.
Okay. Going back on security, one of the things is that I'm asking this from the standpoint of the location of this building and what's around it. Security, I think, is really important because we have a lot of residential homes in and around the surrounding area. If this were plopped right in the middle of a corporate center, I might be less inclined to ask. But so my understanding is the category of the students that would be attending here would be such that we wouldn't have issues like they've seen in Township with the need of helicopters trying to find kids that have lost, or dogs trying to track down kids, and we wouldn't have to worry about children wandering through our neighborhoods or walking out on 401 and getting hit.
That is correct. The term that we use is elopement. Students
Elopement, okay.
that run, take certain actions, obviously. Many of these students can't walk.
Okay.
Assistance just to get in and out of the vans.
Okay. Your security detail, how many security officers would you have in the property?
We tend to have a security patrol, either marked or unmarked, right now. And within the building, we have behavior specialists to react to student incidents or parents or something. Pretty much.
Would it be safe to say that your staff and your security would work closely with our police officers with coming up with plans and understanding of what's going on and any issues?
Yes, that's a fair statement. We try to do that now in all our campuses throughout the campus.
Okay. The other thing I'm trying to hit upon is that, Joe, there's a well-established community surrounding the property, residential community, and there's a well-defined distinction between kind of like a privacy wall created by the trees that are buffering the area. For example, right in front of the property on Moores Road, there are 100-foot trees that have been there for God knows forever that line Moores Road, and then the back facing Martin's property on the south side. And then just to the east, you've got a historic Gunkel Mill, which kind of represents the old historic Chester County vibe that we have here. And that's well protected by trees and shrubbery and animals that live back there. A lot of these trees are providing a couple things. A privacy damper between what's considered industrial and the residential communities that exist here. It's a really definitive line to see those trees and to know on the other side is St. Gobain and whatever, and over here is Spring Mill Farms, down the road is Brent Aaron. I'm kind of proposing a strategy to perhaps cut or to limit the amount of curb cuts in the driveways that fall onto Moore's Road. And I'd like you to consider, after I got done working with the Route 30 project, one of the things that this township was trying to do was eliminate the number of curb cuts and driveways so that safety became a real issue with cars pulling into existing lanes. So we were trying to limit those. And what you've got now on the property are 2 exits onto Moore's Road on the north side of the road. And you're proposing to add a 3rd onto Moore's Lane. And directly across from that new entrance you're putting in is the entrance to Tiva. So you now created to me, an unsafe situation where you've got a north and a south exit for facilities wanting to probably turn left to get onto 401. And the portion of the road on 401, or on Moore's Road to get onto 401 is somewhat limited. So I can see a lot of people trying to jockey and to try to get out and get to the left so I can get to that light. It's only going to let 7 cars at a time. And I would like to propose, for safety, environmental reasons, and to keep the tall trees that are there that are providing the buffer, which I'm seeing from the land design, it looks like there's probably 20 trees, 20 mature trees that you're looking to remove. Not to touch those, and to utilize the existing exits that are on the properties just to the east of you, so that you still have 2 exits onto Moore's that are safely apart from each other and no issues across from them. And you also have the entrance in the backside on to Mill Lane. So you would still allow 3 exits for your traffic. I think that could be a real help from a safety and environmental issue.
Initially, I think we attempted to mirror what had been approved already for the larger office use several years ago. Fits in well with our dismissals and pickup type of rhythm of vehicles. Obviously, there is technicalities within the declaration of agreement, state remains in the that I'm not totally versed on.
Right.
But again, want to be good neighbors. We are good neighbors. Look at any of our campuses throughout the county, you see quality work. In terms of the trees, we will our ability to comply with the ordinances of the township. Be sensitive design trees and natural elements of the site itself. But really, the driveway itself, access to this site was one of the availability, and it also the development status of it. The access was very important, given we're trying to reduce the amount of time that the students have on vehicles coming from the school districts. So,
but you've got, can we put up the map of where those cars, you've still got, you actually show one of those exits being tied into your parking lot.
Yes.
So it's going to be a key entrance exit. And why not utilize that, maybe broaden that intersection a little bit? The previous land development only showed 6 trees being removed, not the 15 to 20. That's going to have a heck of an impact, because those trees also provide a damper to the very loud 202 road noise.
Again, I relied heavily on civil engineers to it's here and doable based on our volume of traffic and anticipated volume. Certainly give consideration. Also have to be sensitive, again, to intermingling traffic. If St. Gobain's ever comes back 100% in person, hundreds of cars there, the maneuver
Well,
school
like,
buses.
I'm sorry, Joe, likewise, if TIVA, if they bring in TIVA and all those cars are situated over there, and you're gonna have two roadways, two entrances, two exits sitting right across from each other, trying to make a left and a right turn to get out. That, to me, is a recipe for a disaster. Absolutely a recipe for disaster, because you also end up having, so you'll have three different locations where cars can drop onto Moore's Road. You have kids walking along there. You've got no sidewalks along that road. You've got people that are riding bikes. Again, no sidewalks. That is going to heighten any issues that we have with problems, and I'm not happy with that. And that doesn't, that's a done deal, as far as I'm concerned. But you've got still two entrances that can move your cars in and out. And again, the third one in the back, to me, is sufficient. It may not perfectly fit in engineering, traffic engineering, but it certainly should allow enough opportunity for traffic to move. Sure, Jeff?
Jeff Dorr. I'm the chair of the Historical Commission for East Whiteland Township. My compliments on the services you provide and the designs of your buildings, which are absolutely wonderful. Our concern is the historic property. The Gunkel's Mill is the closest adjacent property to this entire development, one of the most iconic historical sites in our township, 1793 grist mill. And the trees along that road, in my mind, are an important part of the environment which is related to that mill. And so bringing that cut through there really disrupts that entire area, and at least moving it away. But in my mind, I agree completely with Scott that two entrances ought to be manageable for this site, and avoiding that extra one, for me, from the historical point of view, would be a big plus.
Again, I rely on my engineers and designers to give us some recommendations. Obviously, it ties into some water, sewer, facilities, the circulation.
Right.
Those type of.
I'm sure it may not fit the square peg in the round hole exactly, but I'm sure it can be worked out for those two, and I'm sure you'll be happy with those two entrances. So I'm hoping that you can work on that. Another question that I've got is that.
I just want to say one thing. We don't necessarily have the right legally to do that under our agreement of sale. I just want to point that out to you, that even if we were inclined to do it, we may not have the right to do it based on the ownership and the various relationships among those lots.
Well, one concern, you clearly show your parking lot, and from the parking lot, there is the road that directly takes it to the second entrance. So you've already designed utilizing St. Cobain's entrance.
I'm not sparring with you. I understand where you're coming from. I just want you to know
Okay.
that we don't have, the reason that that's the way that is because the St. Cobain's property needs 5 spaces to satisfy its, so they built that in so that they could come into our parking lot and, meet their requirements. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Put on the space, we just don't have the absolute.
I understand, and I don't mean to be sparring with you, but that's a key point from this judge's standpoint. Okay. I do have a couple other quick questions. I know these gentlemen have got some others as well. The class of students, in the design, there is a location for a proposed future building. Is there any intent going forward to have the alternative students that Collin Township is concerned about ever coming here?
No, they just don't work together. The programs are very, very different, even though they're on the same campus in Count.
Okay. And my final question, just a clarification, this would require a 209 Act fee? The traffic impact would be?
Land development process,
Yeah.
if this was approved and then went through the
Yeah.
development.
And Joe, just from another understanding is that I lived over in that area and I know it really well. And I'm not sure what engineers were ever thinking when they built that Moores Road in that intersection, partly because perhaps there was constraints with the stream that runs there, but that is the most convoluted intersection and scary intersection that I've ever seen in my life. People coming off of 401 going north, trying to they don't make a right turn. They make it pivots you right out into the other lane of Moores Road going west. And it's a recipe for a lot of accidents and a lot of issues. So there's that concern too with the amount of traffic, and I know it's less than the amount that you would have underneath the standard building, but spreading it out in different ways I think would be beneficial from a safety standpoint. Rich, Peter, I'm sure you've got some questions. And thank you for taking my questions. Appreciate it.
Yeah, just a couple. What are your hours of operation?
Staff begins arriving between 7 and 8. They're usually in by 8 o'clock. School day, the students start coming 8 to 9. And then, it's a full day program. Dismissal probably 2:30 to 3:30. Staff school, other than the night custodians.
So if the office building was full across the street, at least in the PM, you wouldn't even be at the PM peak hour except for staff. I guess that's what your traffic guy is going to go through. Okay.
Rich, can I add one thought on that?
Sure.
You know, with what's happened here with the pandemic, you never know what hours the company is going to be working. Let's say the school district ended up moving in there for whatever, it took a couple of floors. You know, they leave at 2:30 in the afternoon. There's just a lot of uncertainty with the timing between the two buildings. I mean, in theory, it should be okay, in theory, but you never know.
Sure. And all we can deal with, in theory, also is what the current conditions are. That's one way to look at it. But what else? Would you be opposed to a condition requiring that this building stay as child and career development curriculum?
No, we would not be opposed to that.
Not be opposed. Okay. Let's see. The rendering, how high is that, whatever you call it?
Oh, sort of the clock tower
Yeah,
logo?
Right, yeah.
I was supposed to find that out, but I didn't.
Okay. All right. Well, it's not a big deal. Is there a clock in? There's a clock in there?
In that initial rendering, the idea is that people, 202, we have an identifier that people can see. kind of
From
know.
202 over the sound walls?
Yes.
Sounds high, but
You can kind of see the top of the backstop right now from 202, so it's a little bit higher
the what? The backstop?
There's a backstop of a ball field. You can actually see it from 202. The idea is that
If you're not looking straight ahead like you should be, right? It might be better to not have a landmark to have people turn their heads. And that's a little, not dangerous part of 202, but with the merges and all.
Agreed,
it's
yes.
Not a great idea, but I'm not a traffic engineer. That's all I have pending, listening to the traffic and civil.
Just trying to understand the other properties that the CCIU owns and you're in charge of. From the little research I've done, the Calm website's the only one really listed under the CCIU. What other sites are similar to this in the county that are of good reference? That I'm sure. that I'm not seeing on the website?
We have 4 primary campuses. One's located in Penn Township, called the Technical College, Greenwich Bridge campus. And it's a shared facility that we have with Delaware County Community College. We primarily do career and technical education. On Boot Road in Downingtown, we have a combination. Converted several old industrial buildings over the last several decades. It's our office building, our headquarters.
That one's listed on the site, yes?
Yeah, that's right on Boot Road, but behind that, we converted a manufacturing plant to another vocational school. Same, 18 or 20 different. And our third, which has been in since the 1960s, Schuylkill Township, that's another vocational training. Pickering campus. And then I referred to our Township campus, which several programs share the campus, Coatesville Area School District High School, Learning Center, which I described, which is for secondary students, Childhood Career Development Center, programs that we're trying to mirror here on Mooresville. And then we lease a lot of vacant school buildings for fit out rental space. We have some space. We just try to put our operations.
Understood. Thank you for that. Will any of the students, I guess my first question should be, is the Collin facility a little overburdened right now, and will any of those students be transferring to, or potentially transferring, I should say, to the Great Valley campus?
I don't want to say transferring, because once a student's in the program, there's kind of a continuity of services throughout the child's life. It would be generally for newer students. Obviously, geographic catchment areas would be desirable. Our southern campus would receive most of the students, and it central part would continue to serve Coatesville, parts of Downingtown, Chester County. This campus, if we're successful,
Understood. And just to, not to beat a dead horse too much, but to, I guess, what security will be provided at the Great Valley campus? I guess since I don't really have any other ones to compare to, and I don't think it's fair to compare the vocational schools to this campus, but maybe as compared to the Collin campus.
well, I will say that we try to keep our security measures somewhat confidential. Don't like to advertise what we do, which is a best practice. But we have human beings, both armed and not armed, both uniformed and ununiformed. We have very intricate locking camera systems, ID systems, extensive training, orientation for our staff, and again, a lot of software that during.
With it being a different campus, will it be a similar security, or will it be completely different because of different needs?
There'll be a team on that campus, but we have sort of a unified group within the organization.
Excuse me, I believe that's all I have, and if I could pass along to the next person who would like the question.
I just have one more. On the visibility from 202, you think you could see a backstop of the batting cage by going north or south?
South.
Your SUV must be very high, because I just don't see it. And I don't think it's a good idea to have a landmark. There's already a certainteed sign right there, which is clearly visible and intended to be visible, but that's my only thought. Yeah.
I do Before we get on a little bit past this question, if I'd pass it on to the chief if you have any questions you would like answered while we're in this discussion.
No, I don't think so at this time.
Any comments from the public audience? Questions? None. Anyone on Zoom?
No, none.
Jeff, you've got a question?
Hey, this tower, where else can you see it from? In the neighborhoods? Can you see it from the mill? Can you see it from, I mean, I hear that you were trying to get to the, but it sits up on a hill, as are up on the high spot. And I'm just curious what else can see it. And in fact, it might be more eyesore than advertisement in a positive way.
It's not a showstopper.
Okay. We have another
I'm sorry.
question? Les? If you could just come up and give your name, we got to.
Les Craig, 17 Moores Road, probably about a 4-iron building. Seconding the thought on the tower, it looks great in the picture, but I will be able to see that, I know that. While it's a beautiful building, St. Cobain's a beautiful building too, and I don't looking at that. So, not a fan of the tower either. Also, what's real important, I know, to myself and the neighbors across the street, those trees they're old, mature, and I feel like they're even getting delicate. I worry about them all the time. I sometimes think that I'm one straight line wind away from full-blown St. Cobain, or probably a 50% drop in property value. And that's a beautiful building too, but no one wants to see it. Anything, both keep the trees that are on that tree line, supplement on the residential side.
Thank you. We got another question?
I know that, and I'm on Moores Road, I know that I can see the backstop from our location, and I'm a neighbor of Les's. And I know that when you get onto Atterbury, which is a higher elevation than Moores is, that you can see above the tree line, which means that that is going to be above the tree line. And we can see, even if you get on Atterbury, you can see the St. Cobain sign. The other question I have is, there are not going to be any violent students. It's all going to be just developmental.
That's correct.
And just for clarification, Atterbury Road is just further north from Moores and is one of the main roads that exist in the Spring Mill Farm community. That's right there in the back.
Sir, you have to come up because the court reporter can't hear you.
Could also touch on the lighting of the parking lot, well, especially at night. In this room years ago, St. Cobain swore that the lights were they're on 24 hours, including the blue. No one's there after turn off or my experience is a lot of that's discussed during the land development and plans that show lumens and footage of light throw and things like that. And again, I'm not prepared to address that, but I think it's something that will be discussed during the land development.
I hate getting into land development without some of these details defined a little more. So why don't you look into that, because we're not going to make any rendering tonight, and we can talk about it in the subsequent meetings. I think it's important to have some of the details hammered out before we ever get to land development.
And the lighting that we have on our other campuses, it does kind of, we're energy efficient, that type of thing. More for security, cameras and.
Again, if you were situated at the Great Valley Corporate Center, we wouldn't be having these great conversations. But because you're surrounding residential, that is the key in my mind. And I don't know about Peter and Rich, but.
Yeah, I don't have any other further questions pending further testimony.
So at this, Martin, do you have another question?
Well, Martin's coming up. Let me ask you just one question, and this might be for the engineer. I know the playgrounds will be fenced. Will there be any other fencing?
No, just around the playgrounds.
Just around the playgrounds. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. Let me ask you this: is on the drawing and rendering, there's the proposed addition. What would be some of the criteria, and what time frame would you be looking to potentially increase the size of the building for that addition?
It really comes down to the population of the county and the area. I don't know. We're between what we're adding in West Grove and this campus coming online, hopefully in 2026. We hope that's addressing the needs of the school districts and the citizens for maybe a 10-year period.
Martin?
Well, actually, this is a follow-up to a discussion had at the last Planning Commission meeting, June 28th, between the Planning Commission, the residents, the applicant. I would ask the applicant maybe if they could share with the board the impact, the environmental impact, how they're going to mitigate it within the southeast quadrant of the site. Brittany, maybe you have a picture of that. Southeast quadrant of the site is heavily wooded, old growth trees, 150 plus years old, various specimen trees. Part of the application is they want to put a sewer line through there, which will impact steep slopes. So there was some extensive discussion at the Planning Commission meeting as how to find the best path to minimize environmental impact. You can see partially the trees that, at least on that rendering, were removed. So how to determine the best path for that sewer line to minimize environmental impact, but also what mitigation techniques will be used to protect the surrounding area while that is done.
We're going to test. Are we done with?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ken, do you have another question before we close this?
I thought I heard something about possibly a road going over to Moore's Road? But Mill Road? Is there any exit over there? There's nothing cutting along there, along that line.
No, maybe I confused, but I was just talking about the reference to the entrance onto Mill Lane from the St. Cobain property. That was the road.
The existing.
Yeah,
Right,
over
right.
by the pond and...
Yes, that's
Gotcha, okay. And then the other question was, what's the orientation of the, I guess the rendering of the building? The orientation of that? Trying to figure out, you know, could you bring that up for a second? Sure, yep.
Mr. Member, I just wanted to respond on the access thing. There's issues that we have that are not totally within our control, but if they can be brought into our control, I'll take a look at it in the next week or two. We can somehow respond to your comments and some of the other comments about the trees along Moore Road. We'll try to do that.
That would be greatly appreciated and beneficial.
Ready, Mr. Stingle, please.
I do.
Would you state and spell your name for the record?
My name is Barry Stengel, B-A-R-R-Y. I'm a landscape architect.
How long have you been in that position?
I've been a landscape architect and land planner for about 34 years.
And your present?
Current employer is T&M Associates, where I'm supervising landscape work.
Your education?
Penn State University, Bachelor of Science in Landscape Architecture.
Go through it, but is Mr.
I'm okay. I'm okay with your background.
Same.
You've been qualified as an expert in
I have.
offering Mr. as an expert in the area. Yeah. Use plan. Are you familiar with?
I am. That's the existing conditions.
Listening to the you've heard so attention to
Mm-hmm.
and
That's correct, and the tree exhibit would probably be the better one.
okay, is there anything besides that comment regarding the existing conditions that you'd like to talk about?
What, you want me to describe the property?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I'll stand over here.
Okay, I think you're going to need to take the microphone, and they're saying that they can't hear you talking also, so you have to kind of talk into that, please.
Sorry.
That's okay.
The property consists of about 22 acres. The parcel that the Chester County School Authority is purchasing, and it consists, as had been mentioned earlier, of 2 condominium parcels here, and then this other piece here to the east. The entire property is about 62 acres and contains the existing office buildings of St. Cobain and their parking lots and other facilities. The The property itself that the school is purchasing is, adjacent to Route 202 and also bounded by Moores Road. Mill Lane, I believe, is over to the far east there, just off the screen. So as was mentioned earlier, there's the parcel is divided. It's high in the middle and slopes down to the east and slopes down to the west. The historic buildings that were mentioned earlier are here on the corner of Moores Road and Conestoga Road, and more or less the ramp off of 202. So there are some woodland masses. There's, first I'll point out the hedgerow that's along Moores Road that's located starting just south of the existing driveway and proceeding down almost the rest of the length of the parcel's frontage on Moores Road. Then we also have a interior tree mass here, and then the Valley Creek down along the border adjacent to 202. If we could slide the exhibit so that we can see more of the east. There's an existing unused parking lot here on the top of the hill that's connected to the St. Cobain parking lots. And then there's a stream that runs down through the property. It's bounded on the west side of that stream. You can see this band of steep slopes that's shaded. The existing sanitary sewer main runs down through the property more or less north to south. Following it here with my pointer. I apologize to the audience if you can't see it, but it's north-south, and it runs through the property. It runs through this Unit 1B that the school is purchasing, and down to the boundary that's shared at the intersection there of Mill Lane and 202. This, as has been pointed out, this hillside that faces the east is wooded. Circling it here, it's more or less from the back of the existing St. Cobain office building down to Mill Lane is a wooded hillside.
Mr. Stengel, it's a little bit confusing, excuse me. Mr. Stengel, the sheet 2 of the conditional use plan shows the proposed building that CCIU is looking to get approved. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, now this plan differs, at least in one respect, from what was filed with the actual application. Would you explain what that change is?
Sure. The conditional use plan identified the building as being approximately 75,000 square feet floor area. Due to some refinements in the school's programming, 85,000. The building that we're contemplating at this point is 85,000 first and second floor.
And we also changed the identity of the applicant from that which was shown on the conditional use plan file with the application.
That's correct.
Now, you've described the property. Can you, would you just briefly describe the building that is being proposed and the parking? And then also, if you wouldn't mind, the gentleman requested the perspective of the rendering. So if you could touch upon that.
Mm-hmm. This is of course, the proposed building. There's a 2-story classroom wing here. There is a 1-story core facilities section, which would contain the gymnasium and cafeteria and those types of facilities. There are some outdoor playground areas that are contemplated here to the east and also to the south of the building. The perspective drawing that we were looking at earlier looks in this direction from, let's say, the parking lot towards the front of the building. The parking proposed is, we have two lots. We have a lot here in front of the school and then a smaller lot here to the east. The circulation, I know there was some discussion about circulation. Would you like me to speak to that? Okay. In talking with the architect for this building, the intent would be, and the reason we have these various access points, the intent would be for all vehicles to enter via the new driveway that comes off of Moores Road. The larger vehicles would line up along this section of the school, more or less the west side in front of the two-story classroom wing. Smaller vehicles would proceed beyond that to the smaller vehicle pickup and drop-off area towards the eastern side of the building. School buses that were lined up here would then exit via this access point out the existing driveway to Moores Lane. The loop is intended to provide some queuing room in the event that we have a number of buses that arrive in the afternoon and there isn't quite enough space in front of the building. They can proceed past the drop-off area and around the loop, and then when their space opens up, they can come in. As far as smaller vehicles go, they would line up, as I mentioned. This lane here, there is actually divided. It's one way. The inner loop, if you will, would be the queuing lane, for the same reason the buses have the lane there. If there were no spaces here for them to stop, they could proceed into the queue lane and wait until a spot opens up. And then when it's time to leave, they would take the outer loop and come out this way and then exit via the St. Cobain access. So that's the intended circulation. Staff would park here, and then we have some overflow parking here in the event, there is some growth in the school. As Joe mentioned, in a few years' time or 10 years' time, these parking lots will be here, and we'll have already designed them and have stormwater in place for them. But that's the intended circulation as shown on this plan. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Stingle, can you say to the board tonight that whether the applicant will be able to comply with all of the applicable zoning and subdivision land development regulations that would govern the development of this property?
Yes, we don't anticipate the need for any.
And you were provided with copies of the various review letters that were generated by the township. Are there any comments in those letters that you've seen so far that problematic as far as moving forward with the project's concerned?
No, I have not seen any. Work with the township or find a solution to.
Bring up this exhibit. Well, first of all, Exhibit A7, tell the board what Exhibit A7 shows.
A7 compares the current proposal for the school and its parking with the previously approved office building that was proposed for the site. And what I'll do is, again, for the board's benefit. It may be difficult to see on the screen, but there's this black and white transparent, if you will, outline. If you could zoom back out just a little. There, that's fine. So this outline here is the edge of what had previously been proposed as the parking lot for the office building. This is the office building here, I believe, yeah, 4 stories, about 175,000 square feet was proposed for that office building. And then they also had parking here that extended out to, more or less lined up with the back of that existing office building there, St. Cobain campus. So this was just, and this is what the township had previously approved, the access point off of Moore's Lane, and their driveway here, and then of course I believe they also had connections to the existing St. Cobain parking lot. So that's, just by way of example, that's what was proposed. They have, the school's proposal is, has about 120,000 square feet less impervious surface than the office that was approved. We also are much further away in our development areas here from the historic properties here on the corner. You can see how much closer the parking lot of the previously approved building was. We also anticipate about a 30 to 35% reduction in the amount of earth disturbance needed to build the school versus what was approved for the office building.
We've talked a lot so far in this hearing about tree preservation, and I do want you to start off with describing to the board the machinations that you went through in terms of preserving trees along the Moores Road entrance to show the sensitivity that the applicant had for that.
The access point on Moores Road, as we have pointed out, is at the same location as was previously proposed by the office building. There will be some necessary tree removal for that access point. We anticipate, hard to say, but maybe about 7 trees may need to be removed in order to accommodate this access point. Now, one of the things that we did do that the office building didn't was we were able to, as soon as we entered the site with the driveway, we were able to curve to the left to head up the hill. The previous plan had shown the driveway coming more perpendicular to the hillside across these trees, and then entering the parking lot, if you recall, was the edge of that parking lot was about right here. So, but we're turning left more quickly, and we're able to, although there will be the need to remove a few trees in this, at the end of this interior tree mass, significantly fewer trees will need to be removed due to the driveway on this interior mass than what had previously been contemplated with the office building.
Mr. Lambert, I just wanted to point that out, just so that you know that coming into the hearing, we were very conscious of concerns regarding the trees on Moores Road.
I'll drop it down so I can see the top. This conception, you were doing this.
Scott, I think you have to use the phone.
Yeah. I think I'd learned that, wouldn't you, after 6 years? What I was looking at when you were doing this, I wanted to ask you, is it, okay, so here's what you're proposing. But part of what you described is that buses will be coming in on the existing entrance, okay?
Actually,
Okay. But could this become the main entrance But the bus is going in this direction, going down here and cutting across and doing what they have to do, and everything else remaining the same. But therefore eliminating the disturbance that would be created here and the conflict between cars here. Again, I'm just pointing that out as a non-expert on traffic engineering, but that would seem to be maybe something that could work with the flow, and again, without disturbing this particular area. Right, right. Yeah, I know, again, just pointing that out. And the other question I had for you is as you described the building, it'll have classrooms on the first and second floor?
Yeah.
Will there be elevators on the second floor? Or there'll be elevators in that building, right?
Yeah.
Thank
To close off that part, we will investigate. I wanted the board to be aware of the fact that we were concerned about the trees, but I do understand that if there's a way that we can accomplish what you are looking for, we'll take that up.
Again, thank you.
Mr. Stengel, turning to the other area where there's tree disturbance, which is the area that would serve the sewer lateral extension. Can you describe for the board, let's talk first of all about that location. The location is probably, as I understand it, the best location for the crossing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And explain to the board why that is the case.
There are a couple of reasons why that location was chosen. And although we were not the engineers for the previous office development, we came to the same conclusion they did, that this, certainly through here anyway, is really the best location for this sewer line in terms of its impact to the slopes and wetlands. And it's difficult to see here, but the sewer line is within this orange area here, and it hugs the lower edge of the orange area through here. It's proposed to cross the steep slopes and wetlands at this location and then tie into an existing manhole here along the sewer main that runs through the property. So this alignment just skirts some of the precautionary 15 to 25% slope here towards the top of the hill. And then there is a narrow band of slope over 25 down near the stream. And you can see how that band widens on either end of where we're proposing the crossing. So this, we felt, really minimized the amount of steep slope area that needed to be traversed by the pipe. And also the wetlands line, you can see, is pinched in this location. So it also minimizes any potential disturbance to the wetlands, although the pipe will be installed probably via a piece of boring equipment. We're crossing, crossing at a narrow point of these environmentally sensitive areas. So the manhole too, the manhole itself is outside of the wetlands, and there are some other manholes. There's one here that is right in the steep slope. There's one here that's in the wetlands. So we're really avoiding, to the extent we can, minimizing, I guess is probably the better word for it, minimizing the amount of disturbance given the choices that we have for connection to the sanitary sewer. So that's the reason this manhole was chosen to connect to, and why this alignment was chosen through this portion of the slope.
The conditional use standards applicable approaching into forgive me, I'm just not used to this way of doing it. But the conditional use standards for encroaching into steep slopes and very steep slopes has a number of criteria. The starting criteria is that the location of the encroachment is the only practical area. Would that be your conclusion, that this is, that where you're showing this sewer line is the only practical location for it?
Yes.
And are you proposing a method by which you minimize the overall disturbance in the slope areas?
Yes.
And you will be backfilling the trench, I assume, so there's no real mitigation, or is there mitigation that will be involved?
There's no, the grade that exists out there now will not, the trench, the pipe will be installed into a trench, and the trench will have a detailed erosion sedimentation control plan that will accompany the land development.
And that's going to be reviewed not only by the township engineer, but by the Chester County Conservation District?
That's correct. And actually, I just want to point out, too, that the alignment that's currently shown, as I mentioned earlier, was shown on the previous office plan and did receive approval from the.
And is this also the location where your DEP Chapter 105 permit?
That's correct.
The tree removal issue, you do have specimen trees, and I guess, first of all, I ask you, those specimen trees identified in that disturbance area, what size, how would you describe the size of those?
The trees that are identified on the plan are between the diameter of breast type, DBH, they're between 12-inch DBH and 26.
And so those circles would show all of those trees falling into that category in the disturbance area?
Correct.
And as you sit here right now, will the applicant make an effort to run the actual course of the line in the trench in such a way to minimize disturbance as many of those trees as practical?
Yes, that's correct. And as we discussed at the Planning Commission meeting, we committed to working with the town. If this isn't the best alignment coming up the hill, where you see that wide spot in the we committed to work with the township to see if we can reduce the number of trees that we currently think may have to come down.
Mr. Stingle, in your opinion as a land planner, are there any aspects of this project that you think would suggest to the board that they need to impose special conditions regarding the educational use?
No, I don't think so. In terms of its impact, I think it's not exceptional. It's not different significantly from the office use.
Is there anything that you feel would be a detriment to adjacent properties if this project was approved?
No, nothing about its nature detrimental.
Will this project impose any undue burdens on water and sewer and other public services?
No, I don't believe so. If anything, less of an impact by right on.
And finally, any adverse impacts to the health, safety, or welfare of the community if this project's approved?
No, none that make it any worse than the existing. Not exceptional.
I have no further questions at this point.
One question came up on this pertaining to the stream. Jeff, can you just answer? We recently installed to make the Gunkel Mill, restoring it back to its old style. We put a substantial amount of money into a water wheel that does in fact work. Jeff, refresh me, is the Valley Creek water that runs through there, is that what is used to run the wheel? And I can't remember if it does or if you're using any of that at all.
In the original design of that mill, it was true that was the case. But we don't have the mill pond anymore, and nor do we have the connection with the creek. So Basically, we recirculate water out of the wheel well, and water that goes into the wheel well slowly drains
Okay.
out into the creek.
Okay,
Shouldn't impact that.
okay. So if the Valley Creek is impacted by any of the sewer, it's not going to impact our water wheel project? Okay, that answers that.
Yeah, I don't have any question, but a comment. Where you show on this plan or any of the plans proposed future, I don't envision this conditional use process to include any right at all to expand these buildings. And if there's ever a request in the future, it's in the future, just to be clear. Yeah, yeah.
Again, no more comments from the public?
Hello, Barb Craig, 17 Moores Road. I just wanted to comment on Lambert. You had talked about maybe using the existing lower driveway that's currently there. I don't think that would actually work, because if you have buses that need to come in and out at the same time, I think that's going to cause a lot of problems, and then that driveway would have to get widened and then trees removed on either side of that, which actually the neighbors can see much more than if trees are removed lower down towards 401. So that is my comment on that.
Okay.
I may have mentioned this, but perhaps you can help me related to this. What are the wetlands that are designated wetlands in your, how are those being addressed?
There are jurisdictional wetlands on the property. The only direct impact to those jurisdictional wetlands we'll have is at this aforementioned stream crossing, for which we have a permit right now. You could maybe zoom out just a little bit, zoom out instead of in, and I'll point out the other wetlands on the property. There we go. As I mentioned, so there are wetlands adjacent to the stream, the existing stream that runs through the property. There are also wetlands down in the southwest corner. The Valley Creek runs, kind of skirts the right-of-way line there for the 202 ramp. And then there are some fingers of wetland. It might be difficult to see. Maybe you could zoom in on this area here. Okay, so we have some fingers of wetlands that come up actually towards the mill there, you can see. Two locations, here and here. And then there's a little finger of it right there. There's actually a drainage structure that runs through here from Moores Road and then drains here, so that's probably the instigator for those wetlands there. But there are some wetlands here that come up to behind the mill property. The Valley Creek is an exceptional value watershed. It requires a 150-foot buffer, disturbance buffer from it. See that line on this particular, could you go to the actual conditional use plan that was submitted. Okay, there we go. So we actually do have a little bit of floodplain here too, and I'll point that out to you. But there is there's a mapped floodplain line right there. See it better. And then this is that riparian buffer line, dash line. You can see how far away we are from it. We're probably 150 feet from the 150-foot buffer. Does that answer your question, sir?
I think it's great that the applicants expressed a willingness to work in the township in regard to minimizing the old growth tree removal in the southeast quadrant. My question really, though, is many times you see construction, new sewer line being placed, there's so much damage to the surrounding trees that they die. You look at that sewer line, it's just not going to be a nice 10-foot wide path. It's probably, according to that tree removal exhibit, certainly if you can put it up, certain areas it looks like it's 20, 30 feet wide. That's covering quite an area. So my question is, what mitigating techniques would the applicant apply in terms of protective tree fencing? I don't know. I just don't know what maybe the applicant speak to that, to mitigating techniques to protect the surrounding tree area. Martin, L-U-T.
Mr. Lutz is rightly concerned. I mean, it's always a concern on a construction site when you have heavy equipment running around where there are trees that need to be preserved. So there will be tree protection fencing that create a barrier between the construction activity and the trees that are to remain. The contractor will have foremen on site to ensure that the operators are following the rules with regard to the installation of the pipe, and also being conscious of the surrounding areas that are not proposed for disturbance, intended to be disturbed. And then, without going into a lot of detail, because I just don't have it in front of me, once the work is completed, the soil will be stabilized and revegetated. Of course, it will take some time for it to come back to its original condition, but it will get there eventually.
The orange highlighted area, that is the path of the new sewer line to connect to the existing sewer line, which is on the right side of the stream, creek, whatever you want to call it, right?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Mr. Lutz is correct. That's an awfully wide orange area. How wide is that?
He's right. It's about, I think it's probably about 30 feet. But let me, I explained this at the Planning Commission now, and I should have mentioned it earlier. I'll talk about it now. The actual pipe, as I mentioned, follows this kind of, and it's difficult to see, I understand, but if you follow the pointer there, it it kind of hugs the southern edge of that orange area, and then you see, well, then why is all this area here shown as disturbed? There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that the pipe is perpendicular, more or less, to the contours in this location, and in order to adequately protect the stream from runoff during a rain event while this trench is dug up, they're going to have to put silt sock across these contours to catch any runoff that may be coming down the hill there. And that area, regardless of whether the trees are removed or not, is considered an area of disturbance because that's where the silt sock is. So the area of disturbance is more or less defined by what's shown in orange here, but that doesn't necessarily mean these trees have to come down. But I don't want to tell you they're not coming down and then they have to come down. So what we're doing here is erring on the side of caution and telling you that this is the area that is identified as the area of disturbance, and therefore, the trees within this area, for the most part, are, I'll say, vulnerable. And but I will also say that there will be, efforts to. There's, like, for example, these two trees here. I'll use these because they're kind of on the outer edge here. There shouldn't be any reason why these trees have to come down. The silt sock is going to run across these contours to catch the runoff that's running perpendicular to those contours. The silt sock is installed it's installed on top of the ground. It's not and it's staked in, so it's not something that they have to trench to install like a super silt fence or something like that. So it's while it's possible there could be some damage to these trees, the likelihood is less than, say, trees that are right on top of the pipe alignment. So again, I don't want to tell you they're not coming down and then for some reason find out later they have to come down. They're within an area that could be disturbed, but for especially the trees that are further away from the actual pipeline alignment, there's much less chance that they would need to be removed.
And what circumstances would cause the disturbance to be that wide?
Well, as I said, it's not that it would necessarily be disturbed. Well, aside from that, we do have to get equipment in and out of here to affect this work. But because of the silt sock that's shown, there's, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 different rows of it up and down this hill. That the silt sock, even though it's not necessarily an invasive procedure to install it, it is the edges of the silt sock, or the 2 ends of it, if you will, because they do run, as I mentioned, parallel to the contours, define the limit of disturbance. That doesn't necessarily mean the ground's going to be torn up within that entire area, but we're placing the silt sock here, so that is, it's included within the area of disturbance. I don't know how much, how much more I can explain it. That's just how it's defined. Yes, that's an accurate statement.
So it's the worst case.
Correct.
And the best case would be the 2 trees which are kind of right on top of the line and the little 1 or 2 just to those left. Best case is 4. Is that fair to say?
That's fair.
Best case? All right. But won't know until literally you're out there.
That's correct.
And at construction is I guess our engineer would be out there too to monitor and make sure that the best case, okay. All right. This is being recorded, Al.
Oh, sorry.
We have agreed to work with the township, and we'll do our very best to minimize the number of trees that are taken down in that
And I just wanted to reiterate, I think, something you already said, that this is the permitted egress, the NPDES, DES permitted egress for the sewer line?
It's a Chapter 105 permit, which is granted by DEP because it's exceptional value.
Well, it's exceptional value and it's crossing a jurisdiction.
And that has been granted? That's what I was asking. Thank you.
Just so the board has a clarification, if a variance was not approved for touching the steep slope, the conditional use for the steep slope, where would the pipes run then on that map?
There is no location that we can connect to the existing sanitary sewer without crossing some slope. But we've chosen the area that serves
The least.
the least.
Okay.
Any more questions for Mr. Stengel?
I have none.
Brian,
Thank you for all that
Kevin,
information, by the way.
pardon me?
Thank you for all that information.
Anyone else in the audience, or Donna?
None over here.
Okay.
Brian Kevany, please.
I do.
Spell your name, please.
My name is Brian Keaveney, B-R-I-A-N. He is in Vincent. I'm a traffic engineer. A little over 30 years. All 30 years, actually.
All 30 years. Just briefly.
Sure, I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, transportation and traffic, both from Villanova. Engineer's license, and I have a professional traffic operations certificate, which is a national Institute of Transportation Engineers.
As an expert traffic.
I have.
That's fine.
Approved, fine, no issues.
Anyone in the audience or online have any questions? Yes. He's accepted.
Thank you.
And Joe, you're going to have to stand near the microphone.
So sorry, I keep
Yes,
forgetting. I
I know.
apologize again. First of all, did you prepare Exhibit A10?
I did.
And is that a kind of a revision or supplement to a prior summary that you had prepared?
It is.
Can you explain to the board what you did in order to prepare Exhibit A10?
Certainly. So what we did was take a look at what the expected traffic generation from the proposed school. Fundamentally, we compared it to previously.
And did you use the ITE trip generation manual for that analysis initially?
Initial analysis, yes.
And what use category did you use for that purpose?
So there was no specific use in the database that directly corresponds to the proposed use. What we did was use what we viewed as the most conservative use, meaning the highest generator of other school uses, private school, K through 8.
Now, would you use the term conservative? Would you expect that particular classification would indicate a trip generation that would be greater than actual?
Yes, I do.
Has the applicant provided you with a detailed summary of the kind of the distribution of traffic in the morning and in the afternoon?
They did. That's the second part of our report, which is the supplemental. So when you look at the actual CCIU program. As mentioned earlier, there'll be no student drivers, there'll be no activities. And laid out the actual incoming and exiting traffic, staff, students, buses, and parents. We calculated that that traffic expected would even be lower than the private school.
Were you involved in 2013, there was an approval granted for the Unit 1B and Unit 3, which is the subject of this application. Were you involved in doing that traffic analysis at that time?
Yes, we completed a traffic impact study for that.
And in how does your conclusions, let's say this, what were your conclusions for the board's edification as to traffic in the morning and the traffic in the afternoon?
Well, when compared to the approved office space, to be clear, we're talking about 175,000 square feet of office. There were several versions of that proposed. Comparing it to the school or the CCIU specifically, we expect that the traffic that will be generated by the school inside the peak hour traffic on the road, about 50% of the traffic that the office would have generated in the morning. In the afternoon, at its highest, it would be 20%. And as Mr. Levitsky earlier this evening, in general, all the traffic is expected to be gone by 4:30 p.m. Moore's Road traffic historically peaks at 5 to 6.
So is it fair to say that there won't be any afternoon peak hour trip generation by the school based on what you understand the characteristics will be?
Correct. So our private school analysis shows that there would be some impact. However, that school use does typically some after-school activities. We don't have looking at the CCIU program, we don't expect any traffic at this stage.
In your opinion, as a traffic engineer, will this project create any congestion, notable congestion for township roads? Will the projected traffic in any way endanger traveling public along Moore's Road or any other connected roads?
No, we believe the traffic can be safely accommodated.
Thank you, Mr. Kevaney. I don't know if
Hey, Brian, does this study take into account the expansion that occurred in St. Gobain, and it doesn't seem to take into account the Tiva building if it were to be filled, does it?
Well, the previous study was done in the 2014 to 2016 timeframe. That's the last time we have specific data in this area. I believe when we had looked at it, there was traffic coming out of the Tiva driveway. Whether or not it was fully occupied at the time, I honestly don't recall.
Yeah, I think it was minimal at that point in time. Les, would you agree back then? Tiva really got diminished. Yeah, quite a bit. So, I don't know. I don't think these are realistic numbers, with what could possibly be there. In other words, I think it needs to look at a maximum potential with Tiva and St. Gobain being fully functional, and with the CCIU, and then maybe somewhere in the middle, if only half the building at Tiva is being utilized, and some portion less for St. Gobain. I don't think it's a realistic outcome of what could potentially be there. And as you know, that intersection at 401 and Moore's Road is problematic.
Just one point of clarification, the trip generation is only studying trip generation from our proposed project, not from the other project.
Okay,
And he's comparing what would have been the trip generation from the Vanguard building if it was built and occupied compared to what the schools are generating.
so it takes no account of surrounding traffic that could be being dropped onto Moore's Road at all?
I mean, in the normal traffic study, I'll refer to Mr. Keating, in the normal traffic study, we would consider other traffic, but not in terms of the trip generation, correct?
Well, a normal traffic study would do what we had done before, which is look at the actual traffic volume at 401 and Conestoga and subsequent study area intersection. We would look at it without the development, look at it with the development.
Okay.
What we determined back in process of looking at the office building, even if the 175,000 square foot office was developed, so twice as much traffic affected at our proposed driveway, that operated at a level of service C, which is highly acceptable back at that stage. So with half the traffic, we would expect similar results or slightly better results.
As I'm writing this down really quickly, so the 2014-2016 study, the level of service C was for the 170,000 square foot building and St. Gobain and Tiva occupied.
Yes.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Your traffic review of July 7th was intended to respond to McMahon's requests and questions in their letter of June 23, correct?
Not completely. We didn't fully address those comments.
Right.
So
Yeah, I
they
didn't
are-
think so. It didn't look it.
No, no. The,
Okay.
the original analysis that we had done was simply looking at the ITE trip generation.
Right.
That was done on June 20, I think it was done on the 23rd. I think it was done either the same day we got comments or before we had gotten the comments.
Oh, really?
Once we got the comments, we added the subsequent information specific to CCIU's program and what we expect their site to generate. But we've not fully addressed all the comments in Mr. Williams' letter.
Should be addressed. Didn't Mr. Williams agree that those items should be addressed during development as?
He did. So we spoke, he agreed with our trip generation. And he thought that all
Is it reasonable to think that a good traffic count could come from doing a study of your existing facilities in Chester County instead of just relying on the ITE?
certainly something that could be done.
Well, I would ask Chris for that then, what he thinks, yeah.
Would your assessments and traffic ratings, understanding the behalf of what the office would have generated at
In the morning.
at a C rating in the morning, with Tiva and St. Gobain being occupied at that time, would it, I know this is kind of theory, but is the reality of what it is now, is that Tiva is not occupied and St. Gobain's, I guess, potentially half occupied now, that it would be a much better rating than actual?
That would be my
Could be
conclusion.
figured. Would that be your conclusion? Thank you.
I know this is gonna, I keep looking at the second page, and I think, Brittany, can you go to the second page of this? This is, so when you see the AM peak, it says 100 in, 0 out, 8 in, 8 out, then 8 in, 8 out. But when you look, it says buses, 30 total, 10 full size, 20 vans, but only 8 is coming in and 8 is going out. Can you explain that to me?
Sure. So what this is a comparison of is how much traffic would enter and exit the CCIU site during the peak hour of Moore's Road. So the peak hour of Moore's Road occurs historically from 7:15 to 8:15. That was based on the previous studies that were done in the area. And then the afternoon peak hour occurs from 5 to 6 p.m. So what we did was overlay the traffic. As Mr. Levitsky indicated earlier, not all the traffic comes in effectively within an hour. So, staff starts arriving as early as 7, all the way up till buses and vans and parent pickup and drop off. So what we did was overlay the expected distribution of traffic over those hours and summarize what would occur in that peak hour of 7:15 to 8.
Okay, so that's the peak hour of 7:15 to 8:15.
That's correct.
Okay. So I would,
Which would be the most direct impact, for example, on the intersection of Moores
and this may not be a question for you, but when the buses come in, I'm assuming these buses leave. They don't stay there all day.
No, I mean, within, I
When
would
they
say within
drop
a
the
few
kids
minutes,
off,
they're, once they come in and they
leave
go
just
out.
like any other school. Okay. That's all I had. I just wanted to make sure I understood.
And that's why those numbers are effectively the same, entering and exiting. So you can see the staff comes in and doesn't leave, the buses and vans and parent pickup and drop off comes in and leaves within the same time period.
Could your peak time not be this 5 o'clock time range, 2:30 to 3:30, when school is letting out, when you're?
The peak of the school is that hour of 2:30 to 3:30, as we've shown.
Okay, but you're talking about different time frames here.
Well, what we look at typically are what the most demand is for the roadway system.
Well, wouldn't the most demand be when they're leaving, when school is ended, between 2:30 and 3:30?
Well, not really, because there's much less traffic on Moores Road at 2:30 than there is at 5 o'clock. Historically, I'm referring to the numbers we have from the study that was done.
I agree with our resident who lives on Moores Road and lives it. But it just doesn't seem to make sense to not include the peak time when the school is leaving. That's peak time to me.
So that, and I guess again, to make sure I'm characterizing it correctly, I don't want to be confusing. So the school will generate traffic in that 2:30 to 3:30 time period, with the same thing as what happens in the morning when buses and cars and vans come in and leave. Historically, that additional traffic can be handled by the intersection of Conestoga and 401 with capacity to spare when compared to the afternoon peak hour, 5 to 6, when that intersection is experiencing a higher volume. So when we look at, again, the office use, the office would have generated more traffic through that intersection at its busiest time. And I'm not saying it's not busy all day, but what I'm saying is the school, when it generates its traffic, that intersection, based on the data I have, is less busy than that later peak hour.
Understand. Got it. Can I clarify?
Because the 2:30 to 3:30 time frame would not include the business guys leaving St. Gobain until
That's
5
correct.
to 6. Right, so
That's
it's
correct.
a different collection of cars, right? Yeah, I understand.
So this use would effectively, in the afternoon, do a better job of spreading the traffic out over a longer time.
In theory versus the other two office buildings that were proposed and approved, which would let out the same time as St. Gobain.
That's correct, and that's fundamentally what my comparison model is.
Right, that's what, yeah.
Does anyone in the audience or online have questions?
No one has questions online.
Question though.
I'm sorry, could you say it again?
Nancy Dorr,
And Nancy, what's your address?
3 Thayer Drive. 3 Thayer Drive.
Got it.
Driving through there between 2:30 and 3:30 regularly. I don't think you're being realistic, because that's when the high school gets. And 401 and Morse Road is very, very busy between 2:30 and 3:30. And also because nobody's in the TIVA building right now, the high school students are parking in the parking lot. And at 2:30, there are a great many students coming out of TIVA's parking lot because they can park there without paying the registration fee to park at the high school. This is a practical reality of living there. There's also some, I'm sure, that park on Ash Lawn and Atterbury and Flintshire in the afternoon. So there is a great deal of student traffic in the afternoon on Morse Road and on Mill Lane and on 401. And there's a lot of school buses on 401 and Morse Road at 2:30 to 3 o'clock.
Thank you.
I have no further witnesses. I'd like to go off the record for a second, if we could. Not sure how I know that we have this issue with the entrance, and I just wanted to kind of go over.
And actually, would Brian know anything about that? And he may not. We'll go back on. I just wanted to check, because the issue of the
I
entrance.
probably can't answer it specifically.
Okay.
Give you a generalization. I think comment I heard earlier that said if we were to focus all the traffic, instead of spreading it over 2 driveways and focus it on existing driveway, we may need additional lanes there or some other. But I don't know the answer.
Okay, thank you. And then, Joe, did you want to go off?
Please. The reason I want to go off the record is just to understand what more the board would like us to do. I mean, I think the issue is this entrance, whether we can somehow get to eliminate the entrance and make it work, or whether it's, and there's a number of factors, not the least of which is whether we can get the the folks that control the overall condominium to agree to it. But I'm kind of letting you tell me what it is that you would want me to do. I'll try to get it done, assuming we're going to continue this hearing at this point.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement to continue the hearing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be comfortable making a decision tonight, clearly, to think about it, at least think about it more, and I guess between the trees and the access, those are the 2 items to try to work through, work out, compromise, whatever. And how to do that, I don't know if you guys have to get together, walk the site, get more information. That's above my pay grade.
I'd make a suggestion. I don't know if the board would be comfortable with this,
but. If I may.
Pardon?
If I may before you speak. If I may before you speak.
Oh, sure, I'm sorry.
Keep getting cut out. Odd man out down here. I believe in seeing the plans. I understand that I think it was 4 trees would have to be cut down on the southwestern portion of the property. I think with certain conditions in place to protect the remaining trees, or do our best to preserve the remaining trees, I think it would be less impactful and most beneficial to the site as far as ingress, egress of the traffic goes. That is my opinion, with potential conditions on tree preservation of the property.
I'm not sure if I heard you correctly. You're saying keep that entrance but put conditions on tree removal? Is
that potentially? Obviously, we have to discuss this as a board, but that's where I am currently.
I was, before I rudely interrupted you, I didn't want to take the floor from you, but I was going to suggest that maybe we could sit down, Brian, and Barry could sit down with Chris Williams and talk about, first of all, whether that entrance, whether there's some feasible alternative, and then whether we can do it. And then if not, talk about, how we could preserve as many trees as we can, but still have that entrance.
I'm in agreement with preserving as much trees as possible. I also want to respect the residents of Moore Road and not open up sightlines that are unwanted.
Understood.
As the sightlines from the TV building are not really impactful to the residents of Moore Road, and I want to be very sensitive to that.
I would make one request if we were able to turn this around. I mean, since we can continue the hearing to a date certain, and it seems like we have this as the main open issue. And the reason for this is we have some pretty tight timelines under our agreement of sale, which is not your problem, but it clearly is ours. If we could schedule like a date certain, maybe 2 weeks out, since that would be the only issue, we could come and handle that issue and then close the record.
Well, I think we need to kind of regroup and talk with staff in terms of any other conditions that may have occurred through here. I think, going into this, you knew we had through the chief and investigation, and, security, the class of students that were going to be there, and to maintain that class of students, that it wouldn't change at some point in time. I think there's some concern about perhaps the number of students that maybe we need to put limitations on. I mean, if we agree to 170 students here and then it expanded to a substantially greater, it really has an impact on a lot of different things, including the traffic impact studies and everything. So can we, but I understand your time frame. Can we get together and try to see if we can, we've got 45 days from today, I believe.
Well, the way, normally what we would do is our next meeting is August 9th. And I wasn't sure, Joe, are you asking to meet before August 9th?
Yes, I want to be clear. I wasn't looking for a decision like 2 weeks from now. I was thinking that if we could gather whatever information and then open the record at a date certain and complete the record, then close the record, and then you would do whatever it is your normal process is. But I just didn't want to wait a month to kind of close the record. That's my only request.
Don't we have to advertise?
No.
If the three of us end up getting together to talk about this?
Well, that would be an executive session. But what we would normally do is, as Joe said, continue it on the record to a date certain. I don't have to re-advertise if we pick a date certain. So it doesn't have to be August 9th if we picked, I'm just picking a date, July 25th. That's a date certain. Everybody here, you're aware of it because we've told you here. We would certainly put it on the website, but I'm not required by law to re-advertise it if I continue the hearing to a date certain. I thought we were going to continue to August 9th. The board certainly, if you're willing to meet earlier than that, we could certainly try that. But we need to figure out from Steve what day the building's available. Other than the planning commission meeting.
I mean, I hate to act like a supervisor, but.
I think you know some people.
Yeah, the
Worst case scenario, we go down to the fire department.
well, yeah, that's another, maybe, yeah, that's another issue, but I'll explain why, but, yeah, the last Wednesday of the month, the planning commission's here, and then the last Tuesday of the month, the Park and Rec Board's here. They both meet at 7, and actually Monday, well, actually, there's no zoning hearing board this month, but they meet at 7, so, I mean, you could pick one of those nights if you wanted to and make it 6 o'clock or 5:30 or something like that. Yeah, Rich doesn't like that. Well, I'm saying that the last Tuesday and last Wednesday of the months, the 25th and 26th, are occupied at 7 by the Park and Rec Board on Tuesday and the planning commission on Wednesday.
I can't do Wednesday. I can do Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, Monday is open entirely, yeah. Right, so the 24th's open.
Now, I will tell you, I'm on vacation that week, but I can zoom in.
Bernadette, you're a trooper.
What's that?
I said, Bernadette, you're a trooper. To offer that up, thank you.
What about the
To be clear, so that I may understand our
Monday the
steps forward as
31st?
a board. This is the question to Bernadette, so I can understand our steps forward as a board to meet with Joe and company for the CCIU. Would we be planning a executive session prior to that to then discuss the conditions we have formed in that meeting from this meeting to make him clear on?
Yes, we could certainly do that. Yep, we could do that right before the hearing, or as you can have an executive session whenever.
Okay. That's what I want to understand,
Yep,
so
yep.
that when we do have our meeting with Joe and company, the CCIU, that we have all the ducks in a row for you to understand.
Go ahead.
You were saying the 31st. I am available the 31st. I will be back. It's just a week
Put that on
vacation.
Are you free the 31st, Monday the 31st?
I am.
Would that work, Joe? The 31st?
It's fine with me, yes. Joe, are you available?
I thought that was August 1st.
That's the first.
Oh.
That's the first. Right.
Yeah,
They're all gonna be in the
31st at 7, 6?
How about we start at, would the 6:30, 6:15 be okay with you guys? Sure. Just because I never know how long we may discuss things till.
6:15 then, is that it?
Is that good?
Fine, right? Sure.
And then we should probably give you some feedback based on whatever beforehand, so you have a chance to digest that before the meeting, correct?
Those stuff would have some dialogue.
Right.
Yes.
And then if we get together and if there are any other unusual or different things that we'd like to talk about or whatever, we'll get it over to you so you can
Perfect.
You can discuss it in a time.
Fine, thank you.
And again, to Bernadette, so I may understand this, we, in this meeting with Joe, we're not coming to our conclusion?
That would be a continued hearing. You
Be-
certainly have the right to make a decision that night, but you don't have to make a decision that night. You have 45 days to render a decision at the close of the hearing. So
It could therefore then be potentially decided at the Board of Supervisors
at
meeting on
August
the
9th, yeah, you could certainly do that, yep.
Okay.
Worst case, in
Just,
theory, yeah.
Or if we come to terms of, meeting of the minds, we can finalize it that night.
Okay, just trying to get clarification for myself, thank you.
So do we want to agree to that date and we'll go back on the record, unless you have
Perfect.
anything else, Mr. Riper?
No, that's fine. I appreciate all the
And
discussion.
I wanted just to ask the audience, if you, since we're continuing this on the record to July 31st, 2023, 6:15, if you're unavailable, if you wanted to make some comments tonight that you haven't already made, because you may be on vacation or something, please do so now. I don't want to preclude you from doing that. So if anybody wanted to come up or anyone online. Okay. So if,
Brenda, if they think of something between now and the 31st, are they allowed to send an email?
I would send an email to, when's Zach coming back? He's not coming back to August, right? We're going to email Brittany. Zach's out on paternity leave. So Brittany is on your email's on the website, right?
My email's on the website. I have business card up front,
Okay. And then, Mr. Riper, anything else? We're back on the record, right? Yes. And Mr. Lutz wants to say something, I think.
I'm a little confused about what's taking place here in terms of back and forth meetings between the applicant, board, and coming up with conditions, where's the public involved? Do we see?
Well, the applicant's not meeting with the board
Okay,
until July 31st.
okay.
That's when the next hearing is. The applicant's going to, it sounds like the applicant's consultants are going to meet with Chris Williams.
So the first time that we would see the suggested or proposed conditions by the board would be continuation?
At the,
Or continuation on the 31st?
if they just, yeah, if they decide to make a decision that night or something like, they may get more information where they'll decide they'll hold off on making a decision until August 9th. It all depends, yeah,
Okay.
on what information comes in.
Not necessarily the decision, but the list of conditions that the board will consider.
Yeah, the board may discuss them on July 31st, or it really depends on the more information you get, different conditions may come up.
Okay, so basically the residents would have to wait till the 31st to hear a reading of wherever you stand in terms of conditions. From hearing?
Can the public come to the 31st meeting?
Oh, absolutely, it's a hearing.
Yes, you can come on the 31st.
Yes.
You can be here on the 31st, and you can hear the discussion.
31st is
So
public.
you're not precluded from hearing what's being discussed.
Okay, now
That's what I think you're concerned about.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
misunderstanding the conversation earlier. I thought you were going to come out with a list of conditions for the next meeting on the 31st.
Oh,
so-
the board in executive session may come up with some conditions, yeah. But Marty, the July 31st is a public hearing. Yeah, yeah, I figured you would. And Al? No, we're on the record. We can go off the record. What's up, Al?
Chris Williams' application, starting Friday morning until, including all of next week. This Friday, tomorrow, up until a week from Monday.
So he'll be back the week of the 24th.
Yes.
Okay. You got a tight schedule. Call him tomorrow morning. Thank you.
It's just confirming the date certain and
Yes, so we're back on the record. I'm going to ask for a motion to continue on the record the public hearing to a date certain of July 31st, 2023 at 6:15 PM at the same location at the East Whiteland Township Administration Building.
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing on record for the date of August 31st. July, not August, excuse me, July 31st,
At 6:15.
2023, at 6:15 at the East Whiteland Township Building.
Second that.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
thank you very much.
Passes.
Thank you. So everyone in the audience, what we'll have is a continued public hearing. We'll probably hear from some more witnesses. You're more than welcome to come back. If you have anything you want, you can certainly email Brittany. The exhibit booklets, I think both of them now are on the website.
I need to add the applicant, but we do have
The township's exhibits are on the website, and we'll put the applicant's exhibits on the website. So if you have any questions, please contact Brittany. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Riper.
Gentlemen, thank you for your patience.
Contact me.
You're done. We're here to midnight.
Yeah. No chance of that.
Work on the sympathy angle. Guys. As we continue this supervisor meeting, we are now on to item number 9. Public comments. Are there any public comments other than what we've discussed about today? And here comes
I'm back.
Marty.
back.
Dun, dun, dun.
Got a question for you. I'll make it short. Back about 30 years ago, when the do not enter sign road system was control system was put in place for the Lap Road, Flat Road area. Part of that, there was also the situation where we cut Lap Road. In other words, Lap Road was just cut in half, where we had the residential lap and the commercial lap road. And the portion that was cut out was kept as emergency access road. There's a gate, the roadbed was kept there, and what have you. And my question is, why isn't that being maintained as an emergency access road? It's impassable right now if you drive down there, trees and what have you. Yeah. And the reason I asked this question is because I was attending a recent planning commission meeting, and one of the items on the agenda now is they're talking about adding hundreds of apartments along Route 29, just across from the Township Park. I thought to myself, boy, you know, the direct route for emergency access road to that residential area would be right down Mill Lap. There you are. But it's impassable right now. And so the question is, why, at this point, isn't that being made?
Actually, I think the question is, why don't we reopen it and make it a east-west road, which is much needed, more so than anything else?
I think we know.
They would storm the building.
I think we know the answer to that.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that?
The answer is standing.
Is what?
The residents would storm the building.
Exactly.
You know, seriously.
I think that's a question for
think
John.
Is it, I don't know, is it owned by the township, or is it?
It's still a township
it is?
road. Yeah.
Oh, well.
It's never abandoned.
I remember walking that probably 3 years ago for some reason, and it wasn't really passable then either. Yeah.
So.
It's a fair question. Well, look at it, I guess. It's not that long, but.
Not that long a section.
It's all dirt.
Yeah.
It's all dirt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was covered with dirt and there's planted grass, but, you know, other things have grown over time.
Yeah, right.
Because that goes back 30-some years.
Right. Fair question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on, if there are no other Zoom questions, Donna? Okay. Then I will read the consent agenda. Raise any questions if you've got any specific questions to me. 10A, approve the meeting minutes from June 2023. Ratify the payments of the bills in the amount of $514,486.01. And we have a question?
It's not a question.
1 million.
I think you need to read it again. It's not the right amount.
Not on my sheet, it's not.
Oh, you don't have a one?
No, I don't.
Oh, yeah, no, it's $1,000,005.
I guess,
The one that you got, oh, right on the left.
so that is not correct.
That's for sure.
Wow.
Where'd that $1 million go?
Yeah, I know. Okay, the one with the red, the last minute one. Anyway, I will reread. Did we have a question?
No, that was it.
You were it? All right. So let me revise the 10B. Ratify the payment of the bills for $1,514,486.01. Accept the treasurer's report for May. Accept the quote from Shriner Tree Care for the amount of $18,750 for tree removal in Valley Creek Park. Accept the quote from the Weaver Roofing and Exteriors for $86,900 for replacement of the Township Administration and Police Building roof. Accept the quote from DE Gem Mill for $17,840 for line striping. Accept the quote from Recreation Resources for 3 swing sets totaling $15,700 through a bid with CoStars at the Valley Creek Battle of the Clouds, and Birch Run. Accept the quote for Verizon franchise agreement renewal proposal for the amount of $7,500. Accept the quote from Friends and Friends for Valley Creek House feasibility study for $12,450. Accept a quote from the General Recreation for playground equipment for various township parks in the amount of $78,520. Accept a quote from AVT Creative Services, a website and township building branding for $13,657.84. Ratify the purchase of items for National Night Out on August 1st for $2,400. You got a question? You got a frown? Okay. And then approve to exonerate taxes for Linden Hall HOA Association in the amount of, that's an HOA Association, in the amount of $110.14.
What is that for, Steve?
Credit that was due them for, I think, from the county.
It's for taxes on, I believe it's open space in Linden Hall that the county is deemed to be uncollectible, and they're asking us to forgive our taxes. Right, small amount.
Another quick question for Catherine. What's the Friends and Friends for Valley Creek House feasibility study?
Same question.
Yeah, this is, so when we had talked a few months ago, when the proposed restaurant use was here and we had evaluated those options, we talked with the board at the time about instead looking at municipal use there for some township use there. So in order to do that, the house needs to be evaluated to see like what needs to be brought up to code, the electrical system, we had talked about the septic system, in order to be able to utilize it for those purposes. So they'd be looking at the building for those reasons and making recommendations of what additional work we would do.
Or just to get it in good shape.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's
to be
fine.
able to use it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who knows whether we would use it, but to put it
Yeah,
in
yep,
good shape.
for some type of
To keep it
municipal
standing.
use. Exactly.
Yes, okay.
Yep.
That's fine.
We've met a number of times when I think John has made some really good points. I think we have some idea what's going on, but we need a more precise report.
Sure.
You know, we got water issues, we've got a little bit of paint issues, and anyway, we'll find out soon. Yeah, no doubt.
Last question, the website township branding, is that definitely played, or is that we're considering it and thinking of paying it? The quote, it's just accepting a quote, or we're going forward with the new branding and website design?
If you accept this would be to start the process of, meetings that the board will be part of in order to start working on those things.
Are you okay with that? I mean, we had some discussion about maybe bidding it out.
Thinking about it more.
Yeah.
Right. I can think about it more.
Okay.
You want to do it?
I just,
Let's look at it more.
All right.
Yeah.
Then, I'm not sure how we would eventually, but I'll make a motion for the consent agenda as read, excluding item K. Do you have a second?
Second. Yeah.
well, he made the motion.
You made the motion, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good.
And Steve, how do we proceed with looking at a bid situation on this.
Well, yeah, the proposal was, really in two pieces. One was, we'll say, branding and signage. And the second piece was, branding, signage, logo design. And the second piece was website design. So I think the first thing to think about is, do you want to go forward with either part of it? And it sounds like you guys want to think about both, I guess. But we would just simply, if you want to go out, we would go out with an RFP. Yeah, we would go out with an RFP and just seek other proposals. That's all.
Yeah, why don't we review it and then we'll talk about it next month.
Okay.
As far as how we want to, if we want to break it up, if we want to take it to a bid.
Right, okay.
Um,
Yeah, again, it's not really a bid, it's just, because this is professional services, so, again,
Well,
it would be
yeah.
Right. RFP, and we'd just get different proposals to evaluate.
Any other business? Then this meeting is adjourned at 10:15.